Meeting call to order, please. Please join me in the allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mia Chow?
Here.
Ms. Chun? Here. Ms. Del Rossi? Here. Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Lay?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Ms. Thompson?
Here.
7 present.
Wonderful. First time I see a full house in the audience tonight. So many happy faces. So before we start the meeting, I want to start out with the highlight on excellence. And I understand the participants from the Knowledge Bowl, which I was very honored to be one of the judges. And from attending that Knowledge Bowl, I quite right away I knew the students were a lot smarter than I am. So I'm glad to see you all at City Hall. Please welcome the Knowledge Bowl, the staff, and the teachers.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Carolyn Rochelot. I am the coordinator of special programs in the district. In my usual day-to-day work, I am in charge of our after-school and summer programmings, all of our out-of-school time offerings in the district, and it's a fantastic job. But one of the best parts of my job is that I get to coordinate the Regional Knowledge Bowl. So in Lowell, we have had this Regional Knowledge Bowl for almost 30 years. And it's a long-term tradition, and it's a competition for middle school students to compete academically. So we have teams of 10 from every middle school, so all 9 middle schools compete over 7 nights in March. And this is a wonderful way to showcase all of the academic talents our students have and to really show what a wonderful place it is to learn at the Lowell Public Schools. So after our 9 teams competed, we are very proud tonight to honor the Daly Middle School who have won the competition. And we are going to introduce you to the principal of the Daly as well as our coaches, and then you can meet our students. And before I do that, I would also like to let you know that on June 8th and 9th, a group of students from Lowell Public Schools, so 4 students from the Daly, 3 students from the Wang School, which was our second place team, and 3 students from the Robinson Middle School will all be going to compete in the regionals. And so at the regionals, we'll compete against all of the towns surrounding Lowell. So Billerica, Dracut, Tewksbury, Tingsboro, Chelmsford, and I think there's 6 towns. And it'll be held at Dracut High School, and I'll be sending out more information, but I'd like to invite all of you to be there for the regionals, and I have no doubt that Lowell will be a wonderful contender, if not the winners. So I want to thank the school committee members that have served as judges. Most of you have been very kind to give us your time to judge, and I hope if you haven't yet, that I will have you here for us next year, and I think you would really enjoy it. I know that most of you have been there, and we really appreciate the support of the school committee. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Rob Doyle, the principal of the Daly School, who will introduce you to our coaches and then to our students.
Good evening, Mayor Chow and members of the school committee. Thank you so much for having us here this evening. It's a great honor to be recognized in this way. We're very proud to be here. This evening, we have our 3 coaches and our Knowledge Bowl team. I'd like to begin by introducing our coaches, and I want to begin with Coach Karen Miranda. Karen Miranda has been a longtime coach of our Knowledge Bowl team. She's here this evening. Karen, would you come up, please? Coach Downey, a former teacher at Daly Middle School who's now working for us as a tutor. She's one of our coaches. Coach Downey? And we have a young man with us this evening, Alejandro Bonilla. Coach Bonilla is a former Daly Middle School student, and he came back to help us coach this year. He, I am very happy to announce, is going to be one of our regional Knowledge Bowl coaches, and he's off to UMass Lowell in the fall. Coach Bonilla? And I want to give a shout out to Terry Watterson. Terry Watterson is also a coach for our team. Unfortunately, he could not be here this evening because of a medical event that happened earlier in the school year. But Mr. Watterson has had a major role in the success of our teams over the years.
Good evening. My name is Karen Miranda. I am one of the 4 coaches of the Daly Middle School Knowledge Bowl team, and I would like to introduce you to the winners of this year's City Knowledge Bowl tournament from the Daly Middle School. We have sitting here in the audience tonight, we have Molly Kenaway. She is an 8th grader at the Daly. Molly, you can stand up. We also have from our 8th grade, Lily Ross. Eighth grader Kay Boy. 8th grader Mason Ong. 8th grader Jinsong Alvin Soth. We have from our 8th grade our captain, Dashiell Hansen. From our 7th grade, we have Liam White. And also from our 7th grade, we have Gavin Minot. We have a few students whose names I'd like to include. They were unable to make it tonight due to other commitments, but also members of our team. We had 8th grader Nico Antonelli, 7th grader Sylvia Mushiri, 8th grader Lucas Scollin, 7th grader Kaya Clark, and another 8th grader, Ariston Osorno. We had a lot of fun this year working together as a team. Alejandro, Miss Downey, Mr. Watterson, and I could not be more proud of the effort that these students put in. They would be working on math problems several nights a week, studying the news, watching their current events, practicing their buzzers. It was a challenging season to get started. We haven't had practices in person in several years. Due to the pandemic, for most of these students, this was their first time participating, and they rose up to that challenge beautifully. We had some obstacles medically at the beginning of the season. The kids overcame that as well and adapted and always went with the flow, and they were really supportive to the teachers as we were going through those situations. They just worked incredibly hard. They're kind. They have great camaraderie, and I'm incredibly proud to call myself their coach. We look forward to bringing 5 members of our team off to the regionals. We have Gavin Minot will be joining the regionals team. We have our captain, Dash Hansen's on the regionals. Kay Boy will be on the regionals. Lucas Scollin and Alvin is going to be our alternate. So we're looking forward to representing the city of Lowell in June, very soon. Mr. Bonilla would like to give a few quick remarks, and then we have 2 students who are liking to speak.
All right. Mayor Chow, members of the school committee, thank you. I just want to say that when I was first given the opportunity to help coach the Knowledge Bowl team, when I first received that email in December, I don't think I've ever given a more enthusiastic yes than on that evening. And working with this group of students has been such an amazing endeavor. I've been so excited every time I would come in every week, taking the bus, showing up to practice, and to work with a group of students that are so tenacious and so able has been an honor and a massive privilege for me. And it's been an even bigger privilege to have seen them compete and see how confident our Lowell Public School students can be, even in the middle school level. I feel that the students here have a lot of great potential, and I'm really happy that they've been able to give me the most of that potential during my time coaching them. So congratulations once again to all of you. Your victory and being here is very well deserved, and I think you should all be very proud of yourselves. Thank you.
We have two students who would like to speak to the school committee on behalf of the team. First, we have Kay Boy.
Hi, I'm Kay. I'm from the 8th grade, the Daily, obviously, and I'd just like to thank Mayor Sakari Chow, the committee members, and other staff members for inviting us here today. I'd first like to start off with one of the reasons why I decided to join the Knowledge Bowl. When I first was invited to join the Knowledge Bowl, I thought it would be a great way to challenge myself more academically and test myself on the knowledge that I have already. And I thought it'd be a great option for me to learn more than what the school's already providing. Definitely one of my favorite moments at the championship was when we were competing was definitely seeing the Robinson's bird, because we have our little inside jokes and one of them involves a bird. And it was more funny than it should have been, but I thought that was really entertaining. Of course, one of the things I obviously enjoyed was the jokes that we had with each other. The environment with all the students were just definitely very supportive, and it was so fun have our time together in the Knowledge Bowl. I'd definitely like to thank, our coaches, my teammates, and of course all the other people that supported us and got us where we are now. Definitely some of the things that I learned while I was in Knowledge Bowl was definitely how important communication was. I feel like a lot of our points wouldn't have been earned if it wasn't for the great communication with all of our teammates, and I think that's a great lesson to learn, and I can use that later on. Thank you once again. Big thanks to Alejandro too. If it wasn't for him, a lot of our math, we learned a lot of math from him, and it was just really helpful. Thank you for inviting us here.
Thank you, Kay. And finally, we have some remarks from our captain, Dash Hansen.
All right, so before I begin, I would like to thank our mayor, Sakari Chow, Ms. Rochelo, and the rest of the staff here for inviting us here tonight. My name is Dashiell Hansen. I'm in 8th grade, and I was the captain of the Daily Knowledge Bowl team. I joined the Knowledge Bowl team back in 6th grade because I thought it would be something I would excel at. Back then, I wasn't really the top scoring member of the team. Looking back on it now, after we won the finals, fills me with pride to see how far I've come. And it could not have been possible without my fellow teammates, the vigorous work of our coaches, Miss Miranda, Mrs. Downey, Alejandro, and Mr. Watterson, who's not here, and everyone who worked hard to make Knowledge Bowl possible this year. The eruption of cheering from the crowd when the time was called on the final round is something that I will never forget. From Knowledge Bowl, I have gained a lot of general knowledge as well as math skills above grade level, which will certainly help me as a future Lowell Latin Lyceum student. The collaboration between teammates has also built skills that will help me in the Lyceum and later in life. Thanks again to the school committee for inviting us to this committee meeting, and I'm excited to represent the city of Lowell in the upcoming regionals.
Thank you. Any comment from the members? Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say I am a huge fan of the Knowledge Bowl, and I want to congratulate the Daily School, and all of you did an awesome job. I think that it's important to know you guys are the cream of the cream, right? You're the top. But every student who participates in the Knowledge Bowl across the district are leaders. They're students who show tenacity, courage. It's very scary to get up there. I know my kids wouldn't even try out for it. You've got this, you've got to answer quickly, and you're on the spot. It's amazing to see the work and the effort of our staff in making this happen. It is one of my favorite events because they're so rare that we have opportunities to really encourage and appreciate academic excellence. And so it's a great You're really your role models for your school and for the city. And I just want to thank you for your participation and thank the staff. And I look forward to seeing us take on the regionals and win that too. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, I just want to say something briefly from up here. I want to thank you, Carolyn, for working hard to organize the Knowledge Bowl year after year and keeping the tradition going forward. I want to congratulate to the principal, Doyle, and congratulate to all the coaches, to the staff, and I see some family members maybe sitting back there. Congratulations as well, and obviously congratulations to all the students. I am very honored. The city is very happy to have you represent the city of Lowell out there, and I know that you will win. You will do us proud. And I also would be our honors if we can take photos with the students, with the principal, with the coaches and the staff. And Carolyn, if come in through the gate, and committee members, please come up and we'll take a photo together.
As you're lining up, as a opportunity here, our mayor is an alumnus of the Knowledge Bowl himself. So we're extremely proud of you students, and hopefully those of you in attendance now may be our next mayor of the future. So thank you.
You want me to hold one of them? You want me to do the mayors or you do it?
Have a beer. But it was like
Yeah, I just told them.
geary. It's geary.
Yeah. Well, now we'll go to Section 3, the Special Order of Business, 3.1, Public Inter-District Schools Choice Program. This portion is open to all in favor. Open to public, open to all in favor. This portion is now closed. This portion is now open to all who oppose. Open to all who oppose. Hearing none, this portion is closed. We will take up on this item later on to take a vote on it. We'll now go to 4 minutes. Need a motion to approve the regularly scheduled and special meeting minutes of the Lowell School Committee of April 6, 2022, and to place them on file by Ms. Mon, second by Mr. Lay. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. We now go to 5, permission to enter. Need a motion to approve permission to enter by Ms. Chun, second by Mr. Rossi. Roll call, please. Do you have comment? Okay, sure, okay. Ms. Mon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just on a couple of these, on page 2, the GaggleNet, I was just curious, the numbers that we anticipate, the number of students we anticipate being able to use this service, how they'd be able to access it, what the kind of portal is for that, you know, if it's a staff referral or something like that. And then I was also curious, the $61,000, is that a contract for FY22, or does that stretch into FY23?
Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Ms. Desmond.
Thank you. This is part of that mental health grant that we received, and we had an RFP for a community service provider, and this is the result of that. It's being funded through that grant. It will be handled through school social workers referring to this agency. It is a telehealth agency, so it will be through teleservices. And it is through this coming fiscal year.
So for the end of this school year
Through
into
June
next
30 of next year.
Okay.
Yes.
And do we have a sense of numbers? How many, I mean, is it a number of sessions? I'm just trying to understand kind of what we're purchasing.
Yeah. Let me get that specific. I don't know it off the top of my head. I
I
apologize.
can appreciate that. No,
Yeah.
that's fine. If you could let us know, that would be
Yes.
very helpful. I think it's a great resource for us to have access to for students, and I think that it could really serve a very real need. I mean, we all recognize the challenges in trying to get mental health professionals and make those connections for our students. So if we're able to access telehealth, I mean, I think that's great. But $61,000, it doesn't seem like a great deal of money.
Right.
So if there are, you know, to be able to gauge what we're able to accomplish with that, and then perhaps make decisions moving forward if it warrants review.
We did use this service last year, and it was very successful. So people seem to like it. So.
That's great, thank you very much. I had also had a question on the SNL football contract. In similar lines, how many students are going to be able to access this? How will they access it? And is it strictly, it looks like it's just for summer school, so what would be the extent of programming?
Ms. Desmond.
Sure. So we have been using this service through our after-school programming. They provide physical education activities very similar to what we would do in a phys ed class. It's a combination of SNL staff members and also student interns that work for SNL. And fortunately, Ms. Rocheleau is still here, so I can have her come up and give some specifics about how many students will be serviced this summer in our summer sites, but we are planning on utilizing them throughout the summer school sites.
That would be great, thank you.
No problem. They're a newer vendor to us. They started with us this year. We had a school year contract with them. I think they're at 12 schools right now. Following the pandemic, we had a really challenge in getting staff that wanted to work after school, to be honest. And so we reached out to more partners in the community, and they filled a great gap, and they've been doing a wonderful job in schools. So this summer, I have them scheduled, I believe, at 13 schools, including the 80-day school for the special ed summer school programming. And they'll be working 4 hours a day for the 20 days of summer school. And they run it pretty much like a gym class, like a gym teacher would run it. So it's cooperative games. We found post-pandemic, it's been really important for kids to get physical activity, but also learning how to work in a team, how to take turns. Those social skills, that can be built very naturally through physical education. So it's been a nice, I know that their business name is SNL Football, but we don't do anything with football. It's a very, I wish they'd change the name. It's SNL Sports, I call them. And they have been a very responsive vendor. They are always out. We have never had any issues with them in schools. And I've observed them at probably 7 or 8 schools, and they've been very well, a good partner for us so far.
That's great. Thank you very much. I agree with your recommendation to them on the name. And then my final question just was on the L&P Educational Services. Just if we could get a better sense of, again, kind of the actual service they'll be providing, and then the timeline. Is that just to get us through June, or is that a contract that we see moving into FY23?
Ms. Phillips?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, school committee members, this is part of our diversity hiring initiative, hiring, recruitment, and retention. And this vendor came to us through a formal RFP process, which was released in March. And they will be assisting us in leveraging different networks, local networks, national networks, to identify candidates of color, as well as helping us connect with historically Black colleges and Hispanic serving institutions, and also support our hiring team training.
And that will be for how long a period?
It's through June 30th
Of
2022.
2020, so just for the next 2 months?
Yes.
Are you anticipating continuing that, or is this just going to be a quick consulting and then?
Well, I think that there are some immediate steps that can be taken. So the hiring teams, we had talked about bias, training around bias and the interviewing process, and then just also connecting us with different networks of candidates of color to assist us in our outreach.
Ms. Mona, I think I might have missed one of your comments trying to work something up here. Did you want to have Ms. Desmond respond to a question that you were asking? Ms. Desmond?
Sure.
Thank you. I apologize. This contract, I just went back to read the Gaggle contract. It is actually just through this fiscal year.
Okay.
And it is to provide up to 4% of our students with telehealth services, which would come to approximately 560 students. So that would be available for approximately 560 students to receive between 6 and 10 telehealth sessions between now and June 30th. And they would be assigned either through the school counselor or a school psychologist or a licensed therapist.
Okay.
Now, the grant is written for services for next year, and so we will go through the same process starting July 1. So that's where I misspoke, so I apologize for that.
That's perfectly fine, thank you. I mean, it does give us less than 2 months to access these services, so I'm sure with our signing the contract tonight, we'll be moving forward very quickly. Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor Chow.
Ms. Mona is done. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Ron. I did have a couple of questions, too. So both those last two contracts that we talked about, GaggleNet and the, I lost my place. Those are just till the remainder of this school year, so 2 months to spend that money and get those services, right? My question had to do with the ENE Systems contract for regarding the HVAC study. Is this the bid that was like last year that we talked about? This is the one we had discussed through Facilities Subcommittee?
Mr.
Through you to the
Superintendent?
Superintendent.
Dr. Hall?
Yes, Ms. Doherty, after the meeting, I contacted Mr. Vaughn, who provided the address and the amount, which we put in.
So do we have any sense of the timeline, like when we're going to get, this is the information we need in order to determine what our priority HVAC projects are going to be for the city and the schools, so that our buildings have heat for next winter? Do we have a timeline on this?
It would take you at least, estimated at least 3 months. to do all the buildings.
And will that be enough time to make the necessary adjustments we're going to need to make to our buildings, do you think?
We then have to acquire vendors and the appropriations. You need to have a lot of lead time to make those sort of changes. There's high estimates in regards to the amount of money we would need to correct everything at the same time.
Yeah, I'm just concerned because we're going to be facing another winter, and we want to make sure that we have heat for our buildings in time for that. And my other question is regarding what's not here. We don't have a contract proposal regarding the mental health services audit that we approved back in December and we discussed at our meeting in the first week in April. I think that was the last time we brought it up. So I'm just wondering what the status is on that, through you to the superintendent.
Mr. Superintendent?
Ms. Desmond?
Sure. So following the meeting that we had last meeting, that RFP was drafted and sent to Michael Vaughn. So we are waiting for the bid process to complete.
Okay. Do we have any sense of what that would be? Because our meeting was a month ago. The motion was last year, the first meeting in December. So we've lost, kind of like how I feel with the HVAC, we've lost a significant amount of time to get this very important information so that we can move forward. So do you have any idea what, I thought it was a 2-week turnaround for the city. When was it sent over to them?
I can ask Mr. Vaughn how long the process. It's not something that I handle. I don't handle RFP processes. All I can do is give the information to Mr. Vaughn, and then once the bids are closed, he sends them back to us, and so we have not received them. But the RFP went to Mr. Vaughn the same week we had the meeting and discussed it, and the week that I provided you with the memo that outlined the work that we were doing in the mental health area and also described that an RFP had been written and submitted. So,
No other comment from Ms. Doherty. Ms. DeRossi?
I just wanted to speak in favor of Gaggle, the online system, because it's a very easy process. Social worker calls and they set everything up. So it's, from what I understand of it, it's a very easy process. The other piece is the HVAC, especially for our schools coming into the summer months, and how hot it gets in some of our buildings. I see it in the McAuliffe, especially when I pick up my son. Those teachers are melting, and those kids are flushed, and kids are getting sent home. So I just want to make sure that coming up for the summer, that things are taken care of too in schools like the McAuliffe, because it is very hot in there in the summertime on certain floors.
Ms. Chun?
Yes, I would like to also piggyback off Ms. DeRossi, is that last year we had a situation where our students had to go through school without an AC in their classroom, and we had to cancel school or have to have our students leave school. That's a lot of education loss because of lack of air conditioning system in our school. And what are some ways that we can actually help, and we need answers for this, because again, our kids need this, and heating system is one thing. We don't want our kids coming to school with jackets and stuff, and also air conditioning. We want to avoid that. Same situation last year, we don't want to happen again. And the heating, the summer's fast approach, and we need answers as soon as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Lay?
Motion to approve.
Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mayor Chow,
Yes.
Ms. Trun, Ms. Del Rossi, Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
We do have a couple of memorials I would like to honor first before we continue with the meeting. One is Mary Langill, Butler and Shaughnessy School food service worker, and Mr. Robert Hayden, beloved husband of retired Butler teacher, Mrs. Joanne Hayden, who was my former teacher as well. Please dim the light.
And his daughter.
Thank you for the reminder. Of course, their daughter, Jen Carey, is a teacher at the Lowell High School as well. We now will go to the, actually before we take up the unfinished business, I see some people in the audience, and this being a school night, probably have people here to speak on some motions or agenda. I would like them to go first. So first of all, I'd like a motion to move up agenda, I think it was 8 point, be on the Project Learn. What number is that? Wait. 11.2. Need a motion to move up item 11.2 to be taken up now by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Mon. 11.2, memorandum of agreement with Project Learn. Ms. Robin Desmond.
If I could, Mayor, I just want to make sure for the record
Superintendent.
that I will have to recuse myself from this discussion and decision-making process as an active member of the Project Learn Board. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This MOA is a collaborative approach to supporting our students at Lowell High School outside of the school day. It is a program that's going to provide our students with the opportunity to receive credentials in IT. It is providing our students with the ability to receive some coaching around seeking jobs and writing resumes, and providing us with space in the summer for some of our programming in the STEM area. And so if you have any questions, LZ Nunn is also here to answer any questions that the committee may have. We worked on this with also Dr. Rothschilds at Lowell High School, and again, it's been a collaborative effort to be able to provide our students with some supports and a space outside of the school day.
Do you want the speaker to make a presentation first, and then we can make a comment on that? Yes, please welcome.
Oh, hi, everyone. Good to see you tonight. My name is Elsie Nunn. I'm the Executive Director of Project Learn. It's nice to be here. And I think Assistant Superintendent Desmond really captured what this program is about. It's really about providing those hands-on experiential learning in college and career readiness for our students, which they've been hungering for, as we found out with our Portrait of a Graduate work that we collaborated with the district on. And we're excited to be able to offer these certificates and credentialing around computer programming and IT, as well as a lot of internships that we prepare students for, and we seek other funding to actually match funding that would come through these funds, so that we can provide paid internships for students. So, so I think it's pretty well-rounded offering, and we're really excited to collaborate with our partners at Lowell High and Dr. Rothschild and also Mr. Fiato. So it's exciting for us to be able to collaborate.
Thank you. Any other comments from the members now? Ms. Chun? No. Ms. Mon? Ms. Chun is, okay. Ms. Mon?
Thank you very much. I did have a few questions, and a lot of this I think is kind of based on my understanding of Project Learn. And I don't think this will surprise you. I've reached out to members of Project Learn's leadership and whatnot. So, we're in a position now where we're being requested to use school department funds to fund this activity of Project Learn, when from its inception, Project Learn was created to raise funds to be spent in the Lowell Public Schools. I don't doubt that this programming is wanted and warranted. My concern is that we're creating a new agency that is providing these programs rather than working together with the high school to provide it through the actual education system. There are other programs throughout the city, whether that's, with Boys and Girls Club or Girls Inc. There are a lot of different agencies that are working certainly with school age, some that are working specifically with high school students that would be great partners for this effort rather than creating, again, another whole agency to provide these services. So I do have concerns around that. $50,000, again, in the big picture, not huge, and that's really not where my concern is, but it's that establishing a new space. I know that it's very exciting to have the Y space that's opened. We're also in the process of trying to fund community schools at our Renaissance schools and at the high school. So pulling money from that effort is concerning to me, to create a new space when certainly a lot of these programs could happen in our existing school space. And again, creating something that is kind of separate from our general education just gives me pause. I will be honest, I'm not going to vote on this tonight, so it will be to my colleagues to decide to move forward. I feel like it's, I just want to be clear about what my concerns are. It's not about the work. It's not about the ability to do the work. It's just a matter of, are we creating a new entity that is now, again, another level of management between students and them receiving what they need. So I would welcome the opportunity to talk with your leadership and to be able to work together to move forward. So, but just to be clear, I'll be voting present on this one. Thank you.
Can I respond to some of your concerns?
Sure, Elsie, please.
And your points are very well taken. I think when we embark on a programmatic effort, we really do it in direct collaboration with our partners at Lowell High School. So none of these programs were developed without input and also reflection on what are the students' needs right now. And we actually work very closely. We have representatives from the Boys and Girls Club on our board. We work very closely with Boys and Girls Club and other community partners so that we're not duplicating efforts. And so this is really about enhancement of services that our students are asking for. And so this is in direct response for job readiness, which they have really been asking, we'd like to see more of that. We really want to get connected with community partners. We find last year we paid almost 100 students to work in part-time jobs over the summer where they got work experience, but they also got professional development experience on presentation skills, communication skills, how to dress for a job, how do you write your boss a professional email. All of that, we're really connecting with local professionals in the region so that we can expose our students to things that they might not otherwise get with their teachers, but it's also an extension. We collaborate directly. I think we work with about 20 teachers throughout the year who help provide services. So, but I understand your concern.
And I applaud that effort, and I absolutely believe our students need it. I can look at the summer jobs opportunity. There are organizations that do that work. And that if Project Learn was raising funding to support what already existed and was perhaps helping to facilitate.
That is something that we do right now. We've helped facilitate over $600,000 of funding for early college programs. We bring in additional resources from the state to support things like the college and career readiness. So this is we really do have this extra space, but it's also not just, programs don't just happen in the space itself. We provide programming after school. We provide programming like on Veterans Day, we did a college readiness day for students. So the space will only accommodate so much, so we want to make sure that we can use programs and spaces that are already in existence.
Right.
So,
So in terms of your summer program, which I know you were referencing, are you working with Mass Hire on that, with their summer employment program?
yes, we work with Mass Hire. Mass Hire has a slightly different offering, and they get a different level of funding stream, but yes, we collaborate with Mass Hire, and they were just over visiting our space the other day.
Well, it's close by, because your youth center is a block away from their youth center, which is a block away from two other youth centers. So there's a lot of youth programming going on.
And there are a lot of
just
students
outside
to
the
serve,
high
too.
school.
700
I'm sorry?
students. And there are a lot of students to serve with.
Well, I know, we've got over, about 4,000 of them at Lowell High School that we're serving every day. So thank you very much. I think as we move forward, we can certainly find some room to agree on and hopefully streamline some of this. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comment? Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have an opportunity to tour the white space at the Project Learn, and I thought it was impressive, and I'm glad that there were students interested in the program. I'm not sure about the competition for the funding from the school, but I feel that at the time when I went to visit, I thought it was great opportunity for students to learn something different. I was inclined to support the program, but I didn't know that that $50,000 is have any or the program at the Project Learn have any competition with the school. So I'm inclined to support the program. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I just want to make a brief comment from up here. Thank you, LC, for coming to speak about your program. From my point of view, I don't think we have enough partnership to pick up with some of the challenges that we have in our city. So I think it's a welcoming program that you are doing. With that said, if no other comments, I need a motion to approve this memorandum of agreement with UTL by, anyone want to make a motion?
Project Learn.
You want to make a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
To approve, second by Ms. Chun. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mayor Chow?
Yes?
Ms. Chun? Yes. Ms. Del Rossi? Yes. Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Present?
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 present, approved.
Okay. Thank you. Since we're on the, thank you, Elsie.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Since we are on the momentum of moving up agendas, I understand there might be registered speaker on a couple motions and on Ms. Del Rossi's motions. I believe 8.4, 8.5, so I need a motion to move up 8.4 and 8.5 up the agenda by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Chun. Motion 8.4, Ms. Del Rossi requests superintendent to report on where ELL, special education, academic intervention classes, and allied arts are being held at the STEM Academy. Second by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Rossi, you want to register speaker to go first? I believe I have a speaker. Madam Secretary, please call the speaker.
Christina Turnbull?
Hi, I'm Christina Turnbull. I'm a parent of a STEM student. This is Nathaniel. We noticed that there's a lot of classrooms being held in the hallway, and those hallway classes are really saddened to notice. Give me just a moment. I have some notes. But we are joyed that we're back in school. But now that we're back in school, we're saddened to see that the classrooms are held in the hallway. The solution to that would be modular classroom, which would be portable. And we We see that it would be a benefit to not only us for the year going forward, but to the surrounding schools if they have a population issue as well. We feel like this would be something that should be resolved because in the matter of fact, these kids, their language is not English, the first language. So imagine sitting in a hallway where 900 students are passing you by and you don't have the opportunity to actually learn something and take away something from the day other than a distraction. I want to know personally where we stand at this and what can we resolve on this, because I don't know, it's been over a few years or such, but going forward, we'd like an update on this because this is a big issue that should be resolved. No kid should be sitting in a hallway trying to learn when there's kids going by and making noises and classrooms going by and teachers or whatever. It should be something that should be resolved and a great investment to invest in. Is there any update that we have on this or anything that we can speak upon as to where it stands?
Do you have any other speaker, Madam Secretary? Okay. Well, we just take on the motion first. Are you done with making your comment?
Yep.
Madam? Okay. Wonderful. So I'm going to have the maker of the motion speak on it, and then somebody else other members can make comments to it.
Okay.
Ms. Rossi?
Thank you. Mr. Boyd and I, Dr. Boyd and I actually had the pleasure of walking through the STEM Academy yesterday for Teacher Appreciation Day, and it was very evident that there are classes in the hallway, kids are distracted, there is a great amount of variables going on in the hallways with bathroom situations, with classroom sizes. Even in the classroom sizes in the hallways are full classes. 25 kids are using a hallway for substantial classes. From what I realized, that the STEM Academy was, the Rogers School was administration, and then administration moved back to Merrimack Street. The plan for that school was to grow each year. Kindergarten and first grade was the first year, then second, and grow a grade each year. I was fortunate enough to work at the STEM Academy for when they grew fifth and sixth grade, and from what I know, there still wasn't a plan from 2017 when I started to 2018 for even fifth and sixth grade, and it was squished. Learning more about it, this was a plan from a former superintendent, and there was no real plan for the expansion, and now it's growing to a point that kids are using a bathroom with more than 48 months apart. It's a pre-K through 8 school, and the bathrooms are limited. There are various issues. The building itself isn't in the best condition. The toilets aren't in the best condition, and there needs to be a resolution for those kids sooner than later. That's a school that parents do not want. I'm sorry. It's a school that most parents want their kids at because it is a very central location to the city and easy access from whether you're from South Lowell or Belvedere or Centerville or the Highlands. It's right off the connector. And it's a STEM Academy. It's a special program, and it's teaching them how to use their skills in various ways. So I think that we need to do them some justice and provide them even staff bathrooms, from what I understand. And there needs to be a resolution for these kids. And thinking about it from the time I was there, I spent 2 years there, and it was already crowded. What I didn't realize is how much it actually blew up in the past 4 years now. And it's evident. You can literally see it. And they need some help. They need a resolve. I believe so. I have a motion to let anyone else speak who wants to speak.
Or-
Are there any more registered?
Sure, absolutely. Let me just make it easy. We did move these two motions up, but we did not bundle it. But since you're speaking on it, let's just bundle them. 8.4, 8.5 by Ms. Mon, second by Mr. Lay. To bundle 8.4, 8.5 also. Let me just read motion 8.5. Request the superintendent to report on student bathroom sink safety in the elementary schools. Second by Ms. Chun. The speaker, do you want to add more about the second aspect of on the bathroom as well, or can we open the floor up to the committee members? Okay, please.
So there's been days when my son comes home and he hasn't used the bathroom throughout the day because it's hard to get from one bathroom to another because a facility is broken or you can't go into it because there's a limited amount of students that are already in that bathroom. So the time frame that he has to go to the bathroom throughout the day is very limited because it's overcrowded, the facilities are very outdated, and it's not sanitary. I mean, we just got back to school from this pandemic, and we're going into a scenario where it's not acceptable because it's overcrowded and it's not up to date. I don't think the kids should live like this. I think that if they have to go to the bathroom, they make it quick, they go back to learning. They shouldn't be going to a second floor to use a bathroom that may or may not be working. And like I said, it's outdated, it needs attention. It shouldn't be avoided past this point. And would you like to say anything, sir?
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the members? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You know, I do think that we really do have to address these issues. I am just kind of looking at the history of this. You know, I can say that it was an idea that came out that I had brought up at a curriculum subcommittee meeting several superintendents ago. And I think the premise, I know the premise when we first built it was that it was going to be a traditional elementary school that was then going to feed to the Stocklosa. The Stocklosa at that point was a very new building. It was the only middle school building we had in the district that had significant science resources. So it was kind of a logical step to let the elementary school build. It also had a low enrollment at that point. So it actually made a great deal of sense at that point to build those as partner schools with a natural feeder. Certainly, and I agree with Ms. Del Rossi, I think it tapped into something that parents were very interested in and wanted to be part of, which was certainly what we hoped. But unfortunately, the growth, you know, when it kind of hit that critical point of moving towards a K-8 institution, it was never conceived to be that. And the space that the school offers simply can't accommodate it. So I think that, you know, obviously we need to work on finding a solution. I know we've had some preliminary conversations around the use of portables. I think it's something that we need to bring to a head during our budget conversations and really make some decisions, because going through this for another year is simply not tenable. So I would just offer that as a request as we go forward. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. I'm just going to add to what Ms. Martin said. It is definitely not tenable. We cannot have kids in these circumstances in the fall. We have to resolve this, and I just, through you to the administration, we have talked about portables. What is the timeline for doing that? And is that going to be something that we can say we'll be able to hit the ground running in the fall with being able to accommodate students with classrooms rather than hallways where they're going to be distracted, with bathrooms, just general facilities that I think we are required morally and legally to provide.
Mr. Superintendent, any idea, the timeline for the portables?
Yes, so this is within my budget recommendation. So if the committee were to choose to push this forward and make a motion to approve that aspect of this budget here this evening, we can move forward from there. Dr. Hall can provide an update as to what the timeline looks like. However, it does require us to, this is over a $5 million cost. I would concur with the committee. We often delay ourselves by talking about whose responsibility it is to pay for something. However, in all cases, we are the body that is accountable for the safety, well-being, and success of our children. So action is necessary in this case, not just optional, but necessary. I want to recognize Principal Passeri, who came on at the STEM with the charge of putting together this very plan. He has done so. He has put together a plan. It is part of our budget recommendation. The sooner we get it approved and we get the budget authority from the committee, and given the fact that it is recommended through the use of ESSER funds, that budget authority, as soon as it is granted by the committee, can be moved forward by the administration. Dr. Hall can share with you a preliminary outlook of what the timeline will look like. However, I want to caution the committee, we've got to go out to bid. We have to hire a project manager, given the cost of the project, and as we've all grown to understand, no timeline is definite within this current environment. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to Dr. Hall to share what the timeline could look like. But absent a formal bid process, the hiring of an owner project manager and going forward from there, I just want to caution, because we have people in the audience here from the STEM, that whatever Dr. Hall shares right now is very, very preliminary until we can get the budget authority from the committee and move forward in a formal way. So Dr. Hall?
The superintendent summarized the major issues, but we've heard from the city that we need to have a project manager assigned due to the cost of over $1 million. This is estimated to be over $5 million. If it moves forward within the next few weeks, we have a chance to get them all in place before the start of school, but there are major supply chain issues with modulars, so we can't by any means guarantee they'll be there by September. It could be as late as December, we've heard, but certainly if we move forward quicker, we have a much better chance.
Ms. Doherty?
I'd like to make a motion tonight on this because we were supposed to meet 2 weeks ago. Well, we had our meeting April 6th, and we didn't have the third Wednesday of April meeting. So we've already lost a couple of weeks. And I know from Mr. Underwood's prior reporting on this, he had scoped out a vendor, he had scoped out prices and modulars that included bathrooms. I understand this debate about who's going to pay for the facility. The reality is we could sit here and be looking over our shoulder. We should have been looking at this 2 years ago at the latest, or during the pandemic. We should have recognized that we were going to have this overcrowding issue. Well, it's too late for the looking over the shoulder. We have to move. This is not acceptable. It is not acceptable for our students or our staff. So I make a motion that we move forward with taking whatever steps necessary to get the modulars in place, hopefully for the beginning of the school year at the Rogers STEM Academy.
Ms. Doherty, I understand that the principal, the staff, and the family from the STEM Academy, they are here to listen to the part on the budget also. So I'm going to take that up next. Can we table your motion to the time we talk about the budget then, which in a few minutes, or you want your motion to be taken up right now?
I think we should do it now because my understanding is we're not actually going through the budget tonight. We're just receiving it, right?
Okay.
I mean, if we have questions about more information that we need, but we're not going to be going through the budget to make decisions tonight.
Sure, okay.
So I would just prefer to make them, I believe we have the commitment here.
Sure.
We understand. I mean, I think it's a shame that it takes parents coming forward and the principals to tell us what we should have already known and been working on a year ago. That we're at this point, I think is problematic, but we need to move forward with it. We are going to be going over the budget in detail, but I don't believe that really happens tonight, unless I'm misunderstanding it. Sure. I think we're receiving the budget tonight. Okay. Right? So I would prefer to make a motion right now.
Motion by Ms. Doherty. Just to be clear, Madam Secretary, would you read in clarity the motion by Ms. Doherty? And then we'll do a roll call, please.
To move forward, taking the necessary steps to get the modules in place as soon as possible at the STEM Academy.
Okay. Second by Ms. Mon. You have a question regarding that? Okay. Mr. Lay?
I understand the necessary for bringing the module to the STEM Academy. I'm in support of it, but I have a question in regarding to the funding of it. We are doing the budget, and we have no time. We're pretty much at the very almost at the end of the budget. So I want to see, are we going to cut from some other program in order to get the funding for the module? Or Superintendent, through you,
Mr. Superintendent?
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. This is part of my budget recommendation. So it's part of the recommendation you're going to hear tonight. It has actually been planned and worked through since July, Dr. Passeri? Approximately July to build out the design and the plan for this. So I want to make sure the full community understands this is not taken lightly. This is a significant investment on the part of the committee, and very much so every funding mechanism, every funding available has been explored. The recommendation here is that the committee utilize available ESSER funds within your earmarked facilities line to dedicate towards the STEM Academy overcrowding in the form of a modular design as presented by Principal Passeri.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. Just a couple quick things. I appreciate being named as a second. If Ms. Del Rossi would prefer to be the second, I would certainly defer where she had brought this forward. So you can, if you'd prefer that, I'd be absolutely fine with that. I do want to say that I agree that moving tonight, I think, makes the most sense. It is a conversation we've been having. I know that the plan has been put in place. For anyone who has served with me for any amount of time knows I am loath to ever take a budget decision outside of the budget process. It is something that I will always, almost always fight against. But I will say that given the realities of ordering and our ability to have these on the ground and functioning, if a week or two can make a difference, I'm prepared to take this action outside of our regular budget process. And would be very happy to support Ms. Doherty's and Ms. Del Rossi's motion. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Any other, Ms. Del Rossi?
Sorry. I just wanted to mention also, due to the enrollment data that was given tonight, I even did the math with all the middle schools about what if we were able to put some middle schoolers in another school. And I mean, our middle schools are like already to the max capacity. So it's not like that would even be an option in just doing the basic simple math. And so we really do need to come to resolve for these kids and the staff. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make sure that I can clarify the motion so that we have the authority we need to proceed as efficiently and effectively as we can. First, I want to make sure that I highlight, which is a part of the budget presentation, the wisdom of the committee, that when we target something to ESSER, our CFO is able to work across our multiple funding streams for the most eligible funds. So even so here for the listening public, the ESSER funds have certain eligibility criteria. When the committee frees up an eligible ESSER line, the committee could actually access funding elsewhere, and our financial office then works through its fund management mechanism on behalf of the committee. The second is that the total cost here that we are projecting is $5,434,560,000. We would humbly request that the motion authorize us up to that amount, and if for some reason the bids come back higher, we'll come back with if we need further authority. But at times, the dollar amount is necessary on behalf of the committee to authorize the funds, and we would further ask that the funds not be limited specifically to ESSER, but you understand as a committee that that's what we're budgeting through, so that way the eligibility of the application can then be researched by our finance office. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Very comfortable with giving the flexibility and the specificity around the amount. I do think it's important to note that this is exactly what ESSER is meant for. ESSER is meant to address COVID concerns. Being able to have appropriate spacing for our students and our staff absolutely ties into that. I think that should it come up that there would be a preference to use other operational or other kind of funding, I would not say I'd be adverse to that, but it would be something that I think we should be made very clearly aware of, because ESSER, as we know, has a very limited time frame. It is best to spend those dollars while we can, because after FY23, really, we see the drop-off. So I do think that it was a wise choice to present this as an ESSER expense, because I think it really does fall in that purview very, very clearly. But I'm comfortable saying that we have the ability to diverge from that, so long as the committee is informed of it at the time. Thanks.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Doherty to move forward, and I'm going to take away the second from Ms. Mon to give it to Mr. Rossi. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mayor Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Yes. Mr. Rossi? Yes. Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
To
In that
close,
case, we're not celebrating the challenges you're experiencing. We are celebrating the important hard work that you have undertaken. So thank you to the staff and the team at the STEM Academy, who has put forth a considerable amount of work to put forward the design schematics that are necessary to get us to this point. So thank you, Principal Passeri and team. We're hopeful that we can get to a better place for next school year for our students at the STEM. Thank you, Mayor.
to close on the two motions, 8.4, 8.5, I just want to close the motion by, I want to thank the STEM Academy for inviting me to visit the school last week. I had a wonderful time. But after walking through the schools, as Mr. Rossi said, seeing some of the students being taught under the staircase, the teachers are always moving the kids around left and right. It's amazing how well they coordinate that. I was very, very impressed given the space, the time, and the young children, they're able to cooperate. So I was very, very impressed and by all the teachers, by all the staff. So given the challenge, as Superintendent said, all of you have overachieved that, still make it a positive and fun learning experience for the students. The city, thank you for that. The two motions, 8.4, 8.5, that was been second. Both motions are passed. I know today's a school night. Are you here to listen on the budget discussion as well, or? No? Okay. Because I think we resolved it. If not, then we just go through with the agenda. If you are here, we're going to move the budget up, but we'll just go with the regularly scheduled agenda. We now return to 7, unfinished business. 7.1, 2022-2023 school calendar. Need a motion to approve the 2022-2023 school calendar by Mr. Lay, second by Ms. Doherty. Any comments? Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. I'm going to take the opportunity while we're talking about the calendar to talk about the fact that we had canceled the second meeting in April. When we set that calendar, I think it was probably a year ago, we knew it was going to be over April vacation. I would just request that in the future, if there's going to be a change, that we're not going to have a meeting because it falls on April vacation, that we have 1 or 2 months' notice at a minimum, and that we would discuss it on the floor. Because at the April 6th meeting, the superintendent came and he spoke with me, and I believe Ms. Martin and Ms. Thomas, about canceling the meeting that was to come in 2 weeks. And we all said, well, we're going to be here. We've got a lot of business to cover. We should just leave it as it is. And then the next thing I know, we get an email. The meeting has been canceled and rescheduled for the following Thursday, which was only a 1-week delay, so it's not the end of the world, except we got bumped because that was the night the city manager got sworn in. So we haven't met since April 6th, and we have very important things to discuss and cover about the spending of millions and millions of dollars, of taxpayer dollars, about the superintendent's evaluation, and multiple other issues, motions that we're waiting for reports to be answered so that we can move forward with making effective spending decisions. So I'm using this moment to talk about, I'm happy to approve this current budget before us, calendar before us, but moving forward, I would respectfully ask that we do not change meetings without discussing it on the floor as a group and at least a month in advance, unless there's an emergency. We plan our lives around these meetings, and we have work that we're supposed to be doing for the people. Thank you.
Mr. Rossi?
I must admit, I thoroughly enjoyed having almost a month off from meetings. But yeah, I do get that nervous feeling, like, am I supposed to be at a meeting? But yes, I being new to the school committee and all, it would be good to like just have a set up calendar just to know. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but I'm happy to be here tonight also. Thank you.
To Mr. Rossi's point, I did miss everybody. I'm happy to be back. Any other comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mayor Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
We now move on to 8 motions. 8.1, Ms. Doherty requests the superintendent provide an update on programs to support younger students with behavior issues. Second by Ms. Thompson. I have to include her, she's on Zoom. Any comment, Ms. Doherty?
Yes, thank you. I did speak briefly with Dr. Boyd about this motion. We used to have an alternative program for our young students with behavior problems, and I agree with his assessment. It was not successful. But what I am hearing is across the district, our youngest kids, I'm talking kindergarten, first graders, are having a lot of behavior issues, and I just would like a report about how we are dealing with those behavior. What supports are we putting into the schools to help our teachers and our children learn how to behave in school? Because I think that it is a disruption for the learning. So I'm looking for what's the plan and what is in place. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. 8.2, Ms. Del Rossi requests the superintendent report on the status of copy machines throughout the district and develop a contingency plan to assure our staff and students have access to teach and learn with appropriate printed, copied resources. Second by Mr. Lay. Mr. Rossi?
Yes, I've talked to the superintendent about this issue, and he's explained that it's an issue with the contract with the copying company who owns the copying machines, and it's the fact that almost they have to prove that they have to fail in their due diligence of fulfilling the contract. And so I understand that on a higher level, but I know how aggravating it can be for teachers when they don't have a copying machine or a printer. And I've heard of it through different schools. But the most immediate concerns I know have been resolved since I made this motion. I just ask that going forward that, you know, the contract for photocopiers and copiers and so forth, all the things we need to really teach our kids are accessible, because that's the last thing as a teacher anybody needs is the aggravation of a copier not working. So just going forward, maybe a contingency plan or something if a copier or a printer is not working. Thank you.
Great motion. Ms. Chun?
I have a question about that. The contract, do we have a timeline? Do we have like a set time with them for, like, say, for example, do you have years contract with them, or what are your the agreements that you guys have with the contract company that does the copying machine?
Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you. Ms. Turner?
It is a multi-year contract. However, being that they are unable to provide us with the services promised through the contract, we have been exploring canceling that contract. Unfortunately, we agree with you that we face the same problems in central office that the teachers are facing, although I'm sure are far more difficult to deal with there. But we're limited because we're legally bound to follow the contract, so we cannot go and get another another copier from another vendor until we go through the legal process, which we were advised by the solicitor a couple of months ago to send legal notice to the vendor, giving them a 15-day warning that they have to resolve all issues. They did that, so we thought we were back on a good path, and we thought that the letter had warned them and they would behave after that. But unfortunately, it went back to not being provided with the supplies or the repairs quickly enough, so we sent another letter. My point is that we have been trying to follow the legal path that we have to, so that we don't cause the district even more problems by violating our end of the contract. We are now officially, we have done 3 formal communications, so we will be pursuing options to get out of the contract. And just for the record, we did also start the process of investigating other vendors that are on the state contract list, and even those that were able and willing to provide us with copiers, it would take a couple of months lead time to provide a district of this size with all the copiers. So when we do give notice to the current vendor, we will have to end it months from now, so we will have to struggle for the rest of the year through this, these problems that we face with them.
You all set, Ms. Chun? No other comments? On favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carried. 8.3, Mr. Rossi requests the superintendent to report on the transportation protocols when a bus driver is not able to work, calls out sick. Are parents along their bus route notified? If so, how? Is there a substitute bus driver selection pool? Second by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Rossi.
that people don't want to work these days, but what's in place to notify our parents, I guess, essentially, if a bus isn't going to make it and they need to make alternative plans for getting their child to school, because some parents care, some parents don't, and some parents just, you know, they just think things are going to happen. You know, and so it's important for that line of transportation to get our kids to school because they need to be in school. So I guess that's where that motion stems from, and I feel like it speaks for itself in its own writing.
Hearing no other comments, on favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carried. Mr. Rossi, if you could say the motion speaks for itself in the beginning.
What do I say?
I'm kidding you. We already done 8.4, 8.5. We'll now go to 8.6. Mr. Rossi requests superintendent to research any and all types of additional funding to enhance student mental health resource across the district. Second by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Rossi, motion to speak for myself.
I guess that could even tie into Ms. Doherty's motion to update on programs to support youngest students with behavioral issues. Mine maybe just stems across all ages. Our kids are in mental health crises. Their families are in mental health crises. COVID has taken its toll on so many students, families in different ways that I don't think anyone has seen before. And I just think it's so important for us to be able, with especially budget season being here, to provide as much mental health support as possible for everybody, maybe even including us. But I just think that it's important to assure that that is in the budget for our students and our families and our teachers overall, basically, because I don't think sometimes we realize the effect that COVID has truly had on all of us. Thank you.
Hearing no other comments, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. Motion 8.7 by Ms. Thompson, motion to acquire a list of all current district trainings being offered to teachers, staff, and administration. The compilation in an effort to determine opportunities to support employees, increase awareness of training, and assist with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and social emotional learning efforts. Clarification on which trainings are suggested versus required in a district. Second by Ms. Chun. Any comments, Ms. Thompson?
I think it speaks for itself.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. 8.8, Ms. Thompson, motion to acquire a list of contractors, partnerships, organizational relationships in the district to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion of every kind to all spaces in the district. This would be to include district process in increasing transparent diversification of contractors, partnerships, and organizational needs to move the district forward. Second by Ms. Martin. Ms. Thompson?
I think this is really important because often when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we speak about it from the aspect of, the teaching and of the students. But I think it's also important when we're, building buildings, like we were just talking about those modular units. Are we making sure that there's equity in all processes? So the people who are bidding for contracts, whether it be women, people of color, so on and so forth. I think we have to walk diversity, equity, and inclusion in all aspects of what we're doing in the district.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. 8.9 by Ms. Thompson, motion to the superintendent regarding current crisis measures employed to address the rates of academic gaps, concerns, and utilization of community partnerships, identifying those which are currently being utilized and wants to be tapped into to increase community knowledge and landscape. This motion is made in an effort to take that data and numbers that have been supplied and collaborate with the community to move these numbers in the opposite directions by fostering connections. Second by Ms. DeRossi. Ms. Thompson?
This one is really crucial because, as we know, from the numbers that we received from Ms. Phillips, there's a crisis in certain communities, certainly communities of color, and graduation rates and academic achievement rates. And this is not just going to be something solved by teaching more or, just having more classes. It's really something where we have to tap into the community and recognize areas where we need those partnerships in order to make our school system stronger, our district stronger. So this just really trying to get us to think outside the box about partnerships, LZ Nunn as an example, but other organizations like the Boys and Girls Club and so on and so forth.
Seeing no hands to make comment, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. Motion 8.10, Ms. Thompson, motion to address the need for a strong financial wellness curriculum as a core part of curriculum design and instruction, as it is necessary to address and impact generational wealth access. Second by Ms. Doherty. Ms. Thompson?
This one is really important because when we're teaching, we're not just teaching to the test, or hopefully not just teaching to the test. We're trying to teach to empower these young people to be self-sufficient, to be successful, to be happy. And one of those things is really looking at generational wealth, and there are extreme gaps in generational wealth. So I think that it's really important that as we are, as we're moving forward and as we're thinking about the curriculum and curriculum design, that looking at the financial wellness, and if you notice, I didn't call it financial literacy because I don't think that's appropriate terminology to use, but really considering the wholeness and the wellness of a family moving forward as well.
Hearing no other comments, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. We now go to 9, the subcommittee's report. 9.1, curriculum and instruction subcommittee meeting Any report, Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief. We did have this meeting on March 30th. Attending were myself, Ms. Del Rossi, and Ms. Thompson. Also, Ms. Doherty attended. And from the administration, we had Ms. Desmond and Dr. Vincente. We had two topics. The first one, we did discuss the issues at the Lawrence Therapeutic Day School. They do, I think from the committee's perspective, this conversation began regarding a change in staffing at the day school. We did go through a great deal of information. Dr. Vincente, as he had indicated at a prior meeting, wanted to do a more comprehensive review of the activities at the school, and had at least taken some action, I know, to bring in a part-time BCBA. So we basically have two part-time BCBAs in functioning in that school right now, rather than the one full-time that we had prior to this school year. We did have a conversation. The head of school was there, and we did review what Dr. Vincente's plans are moving forward prior to our budget session, so that they will be making recommendations. They will be, I'm sure, reflected in the superintendent's recommendations. And as we had said at that meeting, that will be the time for us to be able to kind of address any staffing concerns that we may have. It's not a terribly productive. A lot of great information, and I appreciate it. But and then our second topic was on the physical and health education for athletes and band members. I will again apologize. We did not have the necessary time to get through this topic area. We did receive some information, but I don't think, from myself as the chair of the committee, I don't feel we have enough information or have had enough opportunity to discuss. We did mention at the meeting that we were going to try to reschedule our next meeting for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, we've missed that window, but I would like to ask that the subcommittee be polled so that we can schedule time specifically to review the questions around health classes and phys ed classes. I would say that if we don't do that in the next week or two, we're not going to be able to make any kind of move for September. As it is, it still may be too late to do that right now. We may be looking at January as the first possible opportunity to make any move, but I would leave that to the administration to advise us on. So I would submit that as a report of progress. Hopefully, we will be getting some additional information on the LeBlanc during our budget sessions, and then during with a upcoming curriculum instruction subcommittee to resolve the questions around health classes, mandatory health classes and phys ed classes for our students at the high school.
Yeah.
I'd submit that as a report of very little progress. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Doherty?
Sorry, I'll be very quick. As Ms. Martin and my colleagues know, the issue of taking away health classes for dance students is of great concern to me. I think that the health program, especially given the mental health concerns we have for our students and developing strong relationships, drug use, all those things that are covered under the health standards, I don't think can be combined into the dance curriculum, that it wouldn't be covered to the same extent. That's why I'm very interested in getting more information about this decision. I can see phys ed instead of dance, that makes sense. But the amount of material that students cover through their health class, we have health A and B at the high school level, I think would be a real loss. And to specify that dance students don't need health, where does that end? You know, then you're going to say, what other preferred activity can we say you don't need to take health classes? I just have major concerns around this decision, so I would very much welcome another opportunity to do a deeper dive into this subject. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comment? Hearing none, need a motion to accept the curriculum and instruction subcommittee report as a report of progress by Mr. Lee, second by Ms. Chun. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. It is approved. also have another subcommittee report on 9.2, Human Resources and Labor Relations Subcommittee. Any report, Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just to report that the meeting did take place on the 7th. We did have in attendance myself, Ms. Del Rossi, and Mr. Lay from the subcommittee. Also attending from the school committee were Mayor Chow, Ms. Doherty, and Ms. Thompson. And then we had from the administration both Dr. Boyd and Dr. Hall. We were joined at our invitation by Glenn Kuchar, who is the executive director of the Mass Association of School Committees. We had requested his attendance to take the committee through a training on the superintendent evaluation process. With new members and kind of starting this process, it was the will of the body at a previous motion to provide this training and this information for the Lowell School Committee. We did have conversations regarding the superintendent providing us with his kind of year-to-date information, his portfolio of accomplishments in regards to the goals that have been set for the district. According to his contract, that would happen in May, and then the committee is required to complete that by June. My understanding that there's, Mr. Mayor, you have another opinion, so I don't know if we'd like to hold off. I can just make this as a report of progress, and then when we get to your motion, we can address that as an actual question. So I'd submit that as a report of progress, and anyone who's attendance, it was great to have so many people there. If anyone would like to share any of their impressions or concerns at this point, please feel free.
Any other comment? Mr. Rossi?
I think the one thing that Mr. Kuchar definitely made very clear and transparent is that we need to work together to, as a committee, to really pinpoint the data and what we are truly evaluating, what's mostly important. And there are like 3 points in each realm that we are supposed to point out. So I think we need to work together as a committee to really be on the same page of what we're looking for in order to appropriately evaluate the superintendent. Thank you.
Any other comment? Hearing none, need a motion to accept the Human Resources and Labor Relations Subcommittee report as a report of progress by Mr. Rossi, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The motion is passed. We have one more, 9.3, Equity and Access Subcommittee report. Any report, Ms. Thompson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We met on the 20th, and it was myself and also committee members Doherty and Lay. There was a lot of information. We got a very thorough basically discussion from the superintendent about culturally and linguistically sustaining practices update that we had really had before, a lot of information before from Ms. Phillips, as she had given a really thorough discussion herself prior. So basically just talking about how Lowell Public School framework is really designed for this. Also clarified a lot of, I guess, misconceptions about the Office of Equity and what it does and kind of the purview of that office, which was, I think, very helpful for the people who might have been watching and listening in. Dr. Boyd also stated that the district's fundamental commitment is to equity and to eliminate racial, ethnic, and linguistic achievement and opportunity gaps among all students, as well as to create equitable funding and resources among the district's diverse schools and engage all families, which is really, really important. So this was, during this, we really did talk about the model that the school's under. Ms. Phillips really walked us through the model, the CLSP. And for those of you who were watching even last year, this was something that was brought up as far as wanting to know what we could do to help our students and our teachers that are really wanting to work with the social emotional welfare of the children in the district. So I believe it was, might have been February, we had a coordinator of culturally and linguistically sustaining practices role that was brought to the committee that was then put under suspense account. And we did discuss that, and we discussed that we want to take it out of that account. So I'm going to bring to the floor right now the fact that a motion that was made by Ms. Doherty to discuss the culturally and linguistically sustaining practices program coordinator. I do know it's a little bit further in under the budget. It's also in your packet, so everybody has that. So I'm not sure if everybody wants to go over that now, or if we want to talk about the motion now or later. So I guess I will leave that question open to the rest of my colleagues.
We can talk about the motion now, Ms. Thompson.
Okay, so so the motion on the floor is to take take the coordinator of the culturally and linguistically sustaining practices position out of the suspense account and leave it up to a vote to move it forward so that we can gain some really qualified applicants moving forward.
Okay. We have Madam Secretary wrote out the entire motion for me to read off. If you don't mind, going to read
Absolutely.
off
Perfect.
the motion by Ms. Thompson. I need the recommended coordinator of culturally and linguistically sustaining practices job position be brought forward to the committee of the whole for, am I reading a discussion? Approval to remove the monies in the suspense account for said position and to remove the following qualification from preferred qualifications, experience, and demonstrate expertise as a classroom teacher of relevant content and/or subjects, experience developing curriculum and working in or with Lowell Public School to qualification made by Ms. Thompson, second by Ms. Doherty. Any more discussion on that? Ms. Doherty?
Yes, Your Honor, I just wanted to correct the minutes because the motion actually, the two bullets that were moved out of preferred into qualifications, the second bullet, that wasn't the second bullet that my motion asked to be moved. It was corrected in the actual job description that comes later in our packet.
Okay.
But in terms of the motion, the second bullet to move into qualifications was demonstrated success working with teachers and administrators as a professional development provider, team leader, and/or facilitator. It wasn't necessary. We're not making it a requirement that someone has experience in Lowell.
Sure.
The requirement is that they have demonstrated experience as a professional development provider. And that was, as I said, it is included in the actual job description that comes later in the agenda, but just in terms of the minutes, I think it got confused because there were multiple bullets under preferred. But those, the first one is correct, and the second one is that I just spoke is the one that should be moved up.
Okay.
That was the actual motion.
Right. So Madam Secretary will make an amendment to that motion, and it's still been seconded. Any other comments on that besides that? Any more comments? Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So by doing this, are we going back to our budget and modify the bottom line of our budget?
Mr. Superintendent or the maker of the motion want to answer that? Your intention?
I know that these monies are not to be coming out of ESSER funds. This is designed to be coming out of our general funds so that they are indeed sustainable. But I will defer the rest of that response to the superintendent.
We're prepared to take the necessary steps, committee members. We have the position listed as a permission to post. You will also see it's continuously funded within my FY23 recommended budget as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
I guess just for purposes of clarification for our new members, last year we put in the suspense account, so at the subcommittee meeting, we voted to take it out of the suspense account and start looking at the position to actually fund it for the new year. We got at the, I'm going to speak from my own impression, at the subcommittee a sense of urgency around wanting to post this soon. But again, in terms of my colleague Ms. Martin's concern, it would be another, do we want to vote on the actual position? Because as Mr. Lay said, it is taking another budget item and moving it forward before we've actually discussed the budget. I would defer to my colleagues. I don't know if it's as urgent as I felt the STEM Academy modular units were, but, because we are going to be going over the budget next week, we start, but our decision, our motion as a subcommittee was to take it out of suspense and start looking at this position again.
Yeah. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. You know, I would say that this is, having watched the meeting, and it was very interesting, thank you. It was great to watch it from home, that was kind of fun. I understand that there was pressure brought from the administration to want to move forward, get this position in place now, prior to kind of summer and some of those other things. From my perspective, this was putting it in suspense during the last budget session means that the money is there. It's part of last year's decision-making. So I am very comfortable moving forward with that tonight, recognizing that we'll have a conversation about the ongoing position when we get to our FY23 budget. So I appreciate that, but I'm comfortable moving forward.
Agreeable with you, Ms. Doherty and Ms. Thompson. No other comments. Madam Secretary, roll call, please. I think we had a second already. Didn't we have a second already? It was by Ms. Thompson, second by Ms. Doherty. I'm sorry. You want to do that now?
Yeah, because the motion's the same as the job posting.
Okay.
What number is that, Mary?
If we're just talking about the subcommittee meeting and the motion, we don't need to do a roll call, because later on the agenda, we actually have an item to vote on this position. But if we are going to vote on the position right now, I do have a question about the position.
Okay.
So whatever you decide, I'll go with it, but.
Okay.
This will have to have a roll call because there's money attached.
Okay. And the second one's a separate motion altogether.
Under new business, the job description is.
Okay.
We're gonna vote on it then. She can have them.
Okay. I was just advised by Madam Secretary, we do have to do a roll call because it has the money in it. And then there'll be another motion on the job posting, and then we'll do a roll call and that separate motion altogether.
Either that
But-
or you can withdraw this motion, but you won't have a paper trail.
And it's never a bad idea to do roll call. You can't go wrong. But yeah, it's easy, but we could have done the roll call already. So
Mia Chow,
yes.
Ms. Chun, Ms. Del Rossi, Ms. Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Lay,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Okay, and no more comments on the report. Need a motion to accept the Equity and Access Subcommittee report as a report of progress by Ms. Chun, second by Mr. Rossi. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to Section 10, Reports of the Superintendent, 10.1, Fiscal Year 23, Recommended Budget. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. Are we able to get the presentation on the screen? While we're waiting to come on the screen, I would tell the committee, just for sake of bandwidth and timing, all the other reports here, the KPIs, and essentially the enrollment report as well, you're going to see that embedded within the recommended budget presentation. So just so that you're aware, you're not going to see 5 different reports from us. My recommendation is going to be that you take the others under advisement as reports of progress. So as soon as we get the slide deck up and going, there we go. All right, excellent. Let's see. All right, so here tonight, just by way of process, you're receiving my recommended budget tonight. I'm going to share with you the highlights of that budget, including how it was compiled, how it was prepared, and ultimately what we expect to be accomplished as it relates to our strategic plan. I'm going to share that with you tonight. Within your packet, you also have the entire budget book, which looks like this. Between now and the next steps, Ms. Turner will share with you at the end of the presentation the recommendation for how the committee utilizes its time between now and then what's required of the committee between now and adoption of the budget. Those of you that are familiar and experienced with the committee, some of that process may seem self-apparent to you, intuitive to you. For those of you that are new to the committee, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. This is fundamentally the most important decision that you make each and every year, is the adoption of the fiscal year budget. So tonight's discussion starts the formal process for the committee. However, as you'll see within the presentation, it ultimately concludes a 5-month process that's already been undertaken on behalf of the committee by myself and the Finance Office, Academic Office, Operations Office, and Equity Office. So it's always important to ground ourselves anytime we have a conversation of finances within our strategic plan. Our budget is the financial plan to achieve our educational plan. It's a good time to go back and revisit our strategic plan, which was adopted by the committee in spring of 2020. Important aspect of this FY23 budget, it gives us an opportunity to finally look forward absent significant mitigation protocols of COVID-19 that are required of us. The last 2 budgets that were brought forward to you required significant requirements of COVID-19 protocols that were placed upon the district by the Board of Health, the Department of Education, and the State Department of Public Health. This is an opportunity here going into this budget with flexibility beyond those required protocols. It also enables us an opportunity to go forward with the knowledge that we are in-person, traditional in-person learning as we know it. And that's really, for me, quite exciting to be able to share. Each of the past couple of budgets, that's always been a bit up in the air. So what we have is an opportunity to also look back on our data, not only going forward, which you'll see in our KPIs of what the current year information is, but also to look in the rear view at some of those things that we knew prior to COVID were needs of the district. However, they weren't relevant to what we were working on a given day as we were working to respond to the pandemic itself. As a little bit of an overview, you've seen this before when the governor first released his budget. Our budget is based on the governor's projected budget. We have to move through our budget process prior to it being finalized by the legislature, so we use the governor's projected budget in order to move through this process. There's an increase in revenue coming from the state. It's aligned with the Student Opportunity Act, why you're seeing such a significant increase. However, it's important to note that we're also seeing an increase in enrollment, and within that increase in enrollment, we're seeing a higher concentration of need amongst our students. Higher percentage of our students identifying as homeless, higher percentage of our students identifying as English learners. We're seeing increased needs in addition to increased enrollment, which is driving the increased fund, and it's going to be important to keep that in mind. Now, again, as I referenced previously, last year we established a process that did benefit us coming into this fiscal year. You're going to see how it's benefited us as Ms. Turner goes into the budget book through this process, but also into just tonight's budget transfer and looking at all of our funds together as one financial plan to support one educational plan. Important note here, those of you that were part of our meeting on last night, this does include an anticipated $3 million reduction in the local cash appropriation. We should we were advised last night that that's just part of the proposed budget within City Hall from our local governing body. It's not yet finalized from them, so that is a bit in question right now. However, we've got to move forward with what we know to be the facts of today, and that's the appropriation that's provided. So you do have an analysis of net school spending within your packet. I would request and encourage that the committee read that analysis as well. I'm not going to go into that in detail tonight. It's within your packet, and you will see how the questions that we have related to net school spending and why that number has been reduced by $3 million as far as we understand it. Also on the left side here of the screen as you're looking at it, you'll see ESSER. ESSER is a 3-year grant window. Now we're going to talk a little bit tonight about mitigating the fiscal cliff at the conclusion of that grant window. We're going to continuously be talking about that throughout the course of this fiscal year into next. What's important to understand now is that it is not an open pot of money to be used at any time. Part of our strategy for mitigating the cliff has been to look at a 3-year plan. That was adopted, again, wisdom of the prior committee, to look at it over a multi-year horizon to make sure that we're planned across to sustain those investments across the full window of ESSER. If there's any decision made to adjust ESSER, it works as a budget transfer for the committee, much in the same way as your general fund works. Again, based on the guidance that was provided by the committee as to how we should look at ESSER funds at the inception of that grant, and it has benefited the school district to view it that way. We're recommending that we continue to view it that way going forward. Ultimately, you're seeing a total forecasted revenue all in of $258,338,040 within the FY23 budget. So a year-over-year comparison, again, as in terms of a snapshot, this budget, I'm very pleased to share with you, does not include any required cuts. Instead, because of the benefits of flexibility in funding, due to the convergence of the Student Opportunity Act and the ESSER grant, we're able to look at additional investments within our schools, working directly from a baseline of expenditures from FY22. So once you go through the full math here, ensuring that we accommodate and account for our full baseline for FY22, that we account for the increases to that baseline, which will be overhead increases, insurance increases, contractual increases. What then the committee has at its disposal is $35,220,213 for additional strategic investments. That's the entirety of what's available for additional investments. However, what I will share going through this, once we get into the school site budgets, school site planning and school site budgeting enables schools the flexibility to shift funds within its budget. So Ms. Turner will share with you the ins and outs once we get into that part of the budgeting process, sharing with you shifts, but shifts are not cuts. That's the benefit of the autonomy we allow and we authorize our schools and school site councils to engage in, and you'll see that going forward. However, for the committee, we're working from a baseline of the entirety of our expenditures this year, which enables us to ensure that there were no cuts mandated by virtue of the budgeting process. I highlight that and emphasize that because historically within this community, that's a very different conversation than what's been had in the past. This is the graphic that you've seen previously and you'll continue to see. This is our snapshot of what we mean by a fiscal cliff and how we're working to make sure we address it both in our current planning and as well as our multi-year planning. I'm going to come back to this and share with you again within the FY23. We're going to have to be looking at FY24 as well, particularly as it relates to ESSER. So within FY23, we're going to be presenting to you as well the culminating plan for ESSER as it relates to today. The committee does have flexibility to transfer and adjust, again, just like the decision you made previously with the STEM Academy. You have that flexibility, but the dollars are planned and they are transferred accordingly based on any adjustments going forward. Taking us back to our strategic plan, the message we have grown accustomed to sharing is that given the flexibility of financing available to the district, we can do anything. However, once you work across a district of over 14,000 students, we can't do everything. So we have to focus in and prioritize in those areas of greatest need, and our strategic plan enables us to do that. Prior to coming on board here in Lowell as superintendent, the state had conducted a district-wide review of every aspect of the school district's functioning in 2019. You will see, and as I shared with the committee at that time, even though I wasn't privy to that review, and actually we received that review and the findings of that review after we completed the strategic planning process, there was significant alignment there in our findings and the data that led to the strategic plan, as there was in the findings from the state, and you'll hear me reference that state review as well going forward. Again, an opportunity for us for the first time to move forward into a year of establishing some level of normalcy, very, very different for us from the past 3 years. So in order to prioritize further, we start to translate that strategic plan into actions. We've identified five action areas to support teaching and learning in the classroom, what we refer to as the instructional core, the interaction between the teacher and the student around the content. This here describes the multi-tiered support system to accelerate student learning, and you'll see all of our investments, our recommended strategy aligning with these action areas. and then cutting across these strategic priorities. The priorities, again, outlined within the strategic plan, the action areas identified within the current data that we've been following throughout the course of this year and prior years through our key performance indicators. So again, this has been built with input throughout the entire community. So you can see over 100 meetings have been held, the vast majority of them through our school site councils, empowering our families to make decisions on behalf of their children. We believe that teachers, parents, principals, those who know our children by name, need, and strength are best positioned to make decisions, educational decisions on behalf of our children, empowering them at the school level. There's been then an additional 18 district-wide budget input sessions held, as well as 3 evening community-wide budget forums. Over 100 meetings held, and through those meetings, an average of 85% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed with the identified priority areas that I just shared. So I do feel confident that what I'm sharing with you today, while it's identified as the superintendent's recommended budget, is truly the collective recommended budget of our school community. So the first area that we've identified for targeted support is around strategic school-based interventions. And again, you'll see highlighted there, the reason that we believe this is important is because the impact of COVID-19 has been more significant for some students and more moderate for others, ranging from academic challenges to social and emotional wellness, requiring school-based resources that can be tailored by school communities to meet the individual needs of each child. Over $16 million was authorized by the committee previously and was invested in our school-based budget worksheets. Every school receives something like this, which follows fair student funding, meaning the dollars follow the students. Unfortunately, we had to adjust the timing of our school site councils being able to provide presentations to the subcommittees because of last night's joint finance subcommittee. That's going to be rescheduled prior to your adoption of the budget so that the committee can hear from school site councils about how they made decisions. But nearly 70% of the total spending within the FY23 budget was directly planned by parents, teachers, and principals at each school through our school-based budgeting process. And again, an additional $16.665 million was invested in school-based budgets for FY23. In addition to the flexible spending through fair student funding, there's also additional supplemental resources were provided based on the data that we saw coming forward this year, adjustments that the committee made mid-year FY22. We then accounted for them for the entire year of FY23, including mental health support, positive behavioral support, classroom coverage to mitigate the nationwide substitute shortage, and the supplement for our schools that have been identified in need of significant improvement within our Renaissance network. You have a breakdown in a spreadsheet within the slide deck that includes how those areas come together to provide the $16.65 million of new money. It's also here to identify that we did maintain the increase in pool that was provided through ESSER as well, because again, we address ESSER as non-recurring funds and making sure that we're identifying them in each fiscal year, not just in your baseline. So all told, $3 million additionally for mental health support, nearly $2.5 million for behavioral support, $1.5 for the building-based substitute supplement, and then in addition to that, $1.7 when we increase the wages of substitutes to curb or mitigate the substitute shortage. The next area around extended learning time, $6.1 million is recommended to increase our investment there in extended learning time for students. Additional learning time is required to account for the learning loss that our students have experienced. 2 years ago, it was a direct cut in the number of school days, as well as moving back and forth between remote and in-person learning. This year, we saw that data play out in terms of decreases in average daily attendance, increases in chronic absenteeism. We've got to account for that time, as we've described and reported to the committee throughout the course of this year due to quarantining, due to close contact, due to other aspects of the COVID environment relating to student and teacher attendance that you're going to see me get to here in a minute. So here we are recommending, as the committee just approved, a calendar for next year that includes the equivalent of 2 additional school days. That's done through an investment in full-time professional development and shifting those 4 of the 6 early release days to full days. We are also recommending an expansion of early learning seats. I believe it was Committee Member Thompson that says within this environment, we need to really leverage our community partnerships. You're going to see a series of memorandums of agreement with community partnerships. The expansion of early learning is going to be an important partnership with our community partners across the city of Lowell, across our community, to ensure that we can meet the needs of our young people. We are expecting with this investment that we will get to universal access for 4-year-olds. Our strategic plan calls for universal access for all early learners from 0 to 5 to ensure that every student in the city of Lowell is ready for kindergarten at age 5. Here, we're going to be taking the first significant step there with universal access for 4-year-olds. Ms. Phillips has been heading up a team that's working with our partners across the city to ensure that this is a true community partnership going forward. The expanded after-school and summer programs that the committee committed to with ESSER last year, we're going to maintain those going forward. Our plan is to continue to invest in transportation. The committee knows full well the challenges we had with transportation this year. If there's a challenge with transportation going forward, it's not going to be because of lack of investment. We are earmarking those dollars. We believe it to be necessary, and we're going to work to make sure that we can provide that transportation if at all practicable. We have heard from our vendors that they're not as confident that the pipeline of bus drivers is going to at all revert back to anything different than what it was this year. However, we're working forward optimistically and working forward with them by making sure that the dollars are there and invested so that our students can have access. And then we've talked previously, I want to thank the mayor for his many conversations to collaborate around restoring our school libraries to a standard that this community can be proud of. Our families have demanded of us. This committee and prior committees have all been committed to. Previously, it was one of the hardest decisions, I believe, as I talked to past committee members within the cuts that had to be made because of the financial crisis of 2018 and before. We're now able to restore our school libraries to a meaningful standard for our students. Ms. Desmond's been heading up a study of our libraries to make sure that when we restore them, we're not going backwards to a 2018 standard, but we're truly establishing a 2022 and beyond standard when we commit to restoring and revitalizing our libraries across the city. The breakdown for that, you can see here in the spreadsheet. Again, I'm going to start to speed up as I'm reading body language in front of me and make sure that you're going to have the data in front of you. You're going to be reviewing this for the next several weeks. So you can see now the rhythm of this presentation. If it's easier to read it in slide deck form or it's easier to read it in spreadsheet form, they're both available to you as a committee. Supporting teachers to improve classroom practice. We're recommending $2.9 million here to support teachers through relevant and meaningful professional development. What's important to recognize here within the loss of learning time for our students, there's also been the loss of learning time for our teachers. The literature is quite clear on the importance of the first 3 years of a teacher's career through an apprenticeship model. I can tell you from firsthand experience, I was not the best teacher my first year. I learned considerably year 2 and year 3. Unfortunately for our teachers now that are in year 3, they haven't benefited from all of that professional learning that's typically available through an apprenticeship model, meaning we are teaching side by side, we're teaching in the same building, we're learning from one another through the environment of COVID-19. So significant investments are necessary here. We are earmarking dollars for an additional hour per week of professional learning. We've heard from our teachers that while there's a benefit to doing the full day professional learning to give back the time for academic time in terms of removing the early release time, it also does limit the flexibility of professional learning throughout the course of the year. So we are earmarking considerable dollars here to allow for that within year, within week professional learning as well. Also here in reference again to the report from 2019, prior to my arrival, the state was fairly clear on the need to replenish and revitalize our curriculum, staffing, and support services for schools, as well as the need for us to build out a more robust data system. I'm really excited about a partnership that we are going to be undertaking with UMass Lowell so that we can make sure that we are truly providing access to data in a meaningful way that's leveraging the best of what our community has to offer. That's going to be another MOA that you're going to see coming forward. You'll see the dollars earmarked within the budget. Mr. Skinner's been heading up that collaboration with UMass Lowell, and he'll be able to share that at an upcoming meeting. Our expectation is that we'll be able to get you a fully formulated MOA prior to the adoption of the budget at your next regularly scheduled meeting. And then we've already talked about the need to embed CLSP practices within the curriculum, and as we've heard from teachers, they really value the approach, but also have requested additional support, which we talked about previously. Again, you'll see the breakdown of dollars here and what that looks like for those additional services. The non-instructional needs of our students and school communities, I think this committee, based on all of our discussions, understands these needs quite well. $8.5 million approximately is invested in non-instructional needs for our students. That's factors beyond classroom teaching that have a significant impact on whether our students have access to meaningful learning. The conversation we just talked about with the STEM Academy, an example of that, which is where you see those dollars highlighted. Now, I think it's also important to identify, when I mentioned the STEM Academy, when I mentioned the $3 million reduction from city cash, the question then is, how are we accounting for that? Well, the way that we're accounting for that to make sure that it doesn't reduce or have an impact on the services for our students, we're accounting for that through a shift of dollars, that $3 million from general fund over to ESSER with a correlated cut to the facilities line that the school committee had earmarked. The reason that we're doing that is the message informally we received from the city is that the cut in $3 million was due to an added or a related investment in their facilities work on behalf of schools. So this seems like the natural place for us to go to account for that cut. But again, to highlight, I think we've heard from all of City Council, there's not a desire to cut resources to schools, that the budget is a proposed budget that City Council will be deliberating. I'll certainly bring back additional information, but that's my recommendation for how we account for it now so that the committee can adopt a balanced budget. And you'll see that play out within these dollars versus the prior approved facilities line for the committee. There's some really exciting areas here that I want to make sure I can reference for the committee. Transportation for our high school students. Our students brought forward to us the value and the benefit of having access to transportation at the high school level. Those of you that have gone to high school in Lowell, it seems pretty standard that we don't have access to transportation after 9th grade because that's the way it has been here in Lowell for some time. However, for our students who are moving from 8th grade to 9th grade, it's just a matter of 3 months. They may be having access to free public transportation to school, may not be so different of a location for a school. You think about something like the STEM or Stocklosa compared to Lowell High School, it may be the same exact distance. A student moves from 8th grade to 9th grade, and all of a sudden they've got to figure out a way to get to school on their own. Students brought forward to us significant survey data that suggested that students were significantly reporting significant greater likelihood that they would attend school on any given day, more so if they had access to transportation. Seems logical, almost intuitive conclusion that we should all be able to draw. We're going to be investing there in LRTA bus passes for all eligible students at the high school level. I'm really excited to be able to provide that recommendation to the committee. I believe it to be an equity issue for our students, just simply getting to school. The Student Resource Center we talked about before, due to some of the staffing pipeline challenges across industries, we've been in recruitment for the Student Resource Center, so I'm bringing that back forward to the committee as a plan for investment. We'll continue to recruit, get that launched so that it can be fully operational for next year. Full service community school model, Ms. Martin actually referenced this earlier. This is an exciting endeavor to ensure that services are provided in all of our Renaissance schools from our community partners, but accessible within our schools, initiating those partnerships, coordinating those partnerships, sustaining those partnerships. The committee may remember, those of you that were on the committee, that 2019 report actually suggested and referenced that the Lowell Public Schools didn't have a coordinated framework of community partnerships or family involvement beyond the traditional and historic modes of conferences, ad hoc partnerships, and newsletters. Here with our full-service community school model, we're able to address that in a pilot way, so to speak, within our Renaissance network. This will be, and we believe in partnership with UTL, as it is a key part of the platform for AFT National. I talked about the STEM already. You can see this breakdown, what it looks like in terms of costs to ultimately bring to the $8.5 million that I was referencing earlier. The next area about supporting the homeschool partnership, I made mention of this before. I'm sorry, going a little bit too fast. So that's $898,000 that's recommending for additional investment here. Again, establishing a new path forward with engaging our families. We piloted the Parent Leadership Institute 2 years ago through the Green Elgin Robinson. Families that invested and involved there have continuously asked for us to bring it back and expand it. The request of the committee was to bring forward a plan that was put forward for the Family Engagement Subcommittee. I believe that meeting was either held or has been scheduled. The Enrollment and Placement Services, during the final phases of bringing back to us the recommendations, that analysis has been completed, and we will be receiving that report, which we will forward on to the committee so that we can improve our FRC services or services through the FRC. Breakdown of costs, again, provided there. All told, we are extremely excited to be able to bring to you what we believe to be a budget that is the collective recommendation of our school community that meets the needs of our students now and sets the path forward towards long-term improvement. There's extraordinary optimism as well as opportunity, but at the same time, there's extraordinary need for us to meet within our school communities. We have to do this now, not only in a one-year planning process for our budget, but we also have to look forward over multiple years, because we have to be cognizant of and recognize that the fiscal cliff of ESSER is inevitable. When ESSER ultimately concludes, the ESSER grant window, not this coming fiscal year, not the one after, despite how revenue may increase due to Student Opportunity Act, there's not a way for us to overcome the financial impact of us having access to both the Student Opportunity Act and ESSER for this year and next. So before you, within our budget presentation, is also a recommended updated three-year horizon on ESSER, again, to highlight for the committee. The reason that you have a lower investment in year one is by virtue of the wisdom of the committee to look at it across funds for planning. This year, because of the challenges with staffing, the vacancy savings that you've received by virtue of the challenges of staffing, we've moved more things over to the general fund from ESSER, which has then freed up more of your ESSER dollars for year 2 and 3. Should we experience some of those same staffing challenges again, we will be looking at that again, and we will update it again. At the same time, while you see those shifts occurring, the reverse is occurring with the cut in the general fund by virtue of the local cash appropriation. So what we do there is we shift over expenditures that otherwise would have been in the general fund, we shift those to ESSER. When you shift something to ESSER, because it's non-recurring revenue, we have to account for it in year 3 as well. So if you take an example of this, you take an example of something that may be $3 million, the obvious go-to here, I think, is library services. I've now got to account for them 2 years, so now you need a $6 million correlated cut in ESSER so we can account for sustainability, hence the reason that you're seeing a recommendation of a $6 million cut to your facilities line. And what's important for our community, this is not a cut in services to our students, it's just less that the committee can invest in facilities. Previously, you had earmarked as a committee a little bit over $14 million. Now you're seeing, based on what's been expended, what's been provided, as well as what the remaining flexibility, you're starting to get into really minimal flexibility after the STEM investment tonight, as well as accounting for the reduction in the local cash appropriation. Now, I want to emphasize again here in terms of facilities, we get ourselves into discussions often about who's responsible for paying for what. Regardless of who we believe is responsible for paying for what, there is no question as to who's accountable for the safety, well-being, and success of our children. So the example I've been giving to the community when these questions come up is the example of transportation. Transportation, from this committee, we look to an external vendor. This year, that vendor told us they would not be able to provide transportation services because they had no bus drivers. It was not an option to this committee to say we were not going to transport kids. We had to look to another action. In that case, we partnered with DESE, we brought in the National Guard and drove our buses by the National Guard to get our kids to school. So if in a case such as facilities, the partnership, there's a breakdown in the partnership or the vendor agreement, we've got to take action on behalf of our students to make sure that those services are still provided. So I highlight that because that's been an ongoing conversation. I am rather optimistic and highly confident in the conversations that I've had with new manager Golden. He and I just met again briefly before this meeting. We've met 3 times already, and I believe his first 4 days in office. I'm confident we're going to get to a path forward that's a beneficial path for our kids, a beneficial path for our students, and a path of collaboration and partnership. However, we've got to balance our budget. It's incumbent upon the committee to put forward a balanced budget. You are scheduled to adopt your budget on May 18th, I believe. May 18th, you're scheduled to adopt your budget. So we have to move forward with the information that's in front of us right now. That includes the appropriation letter that's within your packet. That includes the data that's at our fingertips that we can rely upon factually. So the schedule before you, it might seem accelerated, but this is our standard outlook for the budget. At this point, I hand over the budget responsibility of development to the committee. This is my recommendation. The committee now undertakes its process, which will be guided by Ms. Turner, that she'll facilitate you through 2 budget hearings. The committee is obligated by law to do 1. So you have May 9th, May 16th that are scheduled. It's important for the committee to know by law you have to publish your budget hearing in the newspaper, and it has to be published 7 days in advance. The first hearing you can conduct can be at earliest 48 hours after the publication of the recommended budget. It's now published. It's available in my office, available centrally, will be available tomorrow online. You are eligible to hold your hearing on May 9th. You are also eligible, because it's posted in the newspaper, for May 16th. Those are the dates that have been described for the committee. You're not required to do both. You are required to do at least one. Typically, when we do the hearing, you also post that as an opportunity to discuss, where Ms. Turner can walk you through it, and she's going to share with you again what that'll look like. And you are formally scheduled right now to adopt the budget on May 18th. In how the laws operate for the city of Lowell, the full budget authority is with the school committee. So when you send your budget over to City Council cannot make any adjustments to your budget. It's procedural at that point for City Council to roll up your approved budget within the overall city budget. So where you see budget submission to City Council, by law, there can be no changes by City Council to your budget, but that you are formally required to submit it, and Ms. Turner will take you through. There's considerable work from the time you adopt the budget until Ms. Turner and our finance office get it over to City Hall for formal submission. With that, Ms. Turner, can you provide a few more highlights for the committee as to what this timeline looks like, particularly for our new members, as to what might be encouraged for them as they undertake this schedule for the first time?
Okay, so as the superintendent pointed out, we have the dates that he shared with you already. So what I'll say is that the book that you received today is to start the process. On Monday, we can go page by page. What I can do to make it easier, I can bring a summary that shows the changes, highlight the changes per page so that you can see what changes were made from the general fund and what changes were made based on ESSER and grants, because there is a lot of data in the budget section 3. One thing I do want to point out today is that what the budget book includes, so that you understand what you're looking at. Section 1 is just the superintendent's letter. Section 2 is the budget overview, which will explain to anyone that's interested how the state aid revenue is determined, local aid, grants, revolving account balances, and then it goes into a section on expenses and how they're mandatory. It's mandatory to sort them by DESE function codes. It talks about the phases of fair student funding and how our strategic goals match the fiscal plan. Most importantly, Section 3 is the actual budget document. It's a comparison of your FY22 and FY23 expenses. Both years are categorized by funding source so that the new people understand the general fund is the number that I have to reconcile. That's the number that you would vote on. The other sections are just informational. So the general fund is your state revenue and your local aid put together. As mentioned earlier, we did get $22.4 million more in state aid, but with a $3 million reduction in city cash, the final column in Section 3 will show a general fund increase of $19.4 million. Section 4 is just showing you the Fair Student Funding overview. It's showing you how there was $163 million in Fair Student Funding pool, plus $12 million in supplements, which means we had $175 million in the school-based budget pool. Of the Fair Student Funding pool, in that section, you'll see that the majority, 95%, was put into weights. 2% was into baseline, making sure small schools had their bare minimum. 1% was invested into transparency to hold schools harmless, and another 2% was put into budget exceptions. You will see a line item in the budget called budget exceptions that would be expanded upon before your final vote. It is money that we realized during the budget process that schools were entitled to when we did the formulas. Say, for instance, when we put a $100,000 supplement for additional social workers, in the budget, we actually charged them $117. So if a school did not have enough funds, if they didn't have enough funds, we would have to give them a budget exception so that they could afford that position. So you'll see a line called budget exceptions. Each of the schools were given an extra amount in their other account that they now have a week to distribute where they need it to go. And then Section 5 is just site-based budget, and it's showing you how we did $8 million in supplements, $8 million in the additional Fair Student Funding, plus $3 million in coach supplements, which equals a $19 million additional dollars for the schools. Just so you know, I think this is the important part, that, and you'll go through this in detail, but of that $16 million directly to schools, I think it died. Oh, no, okay. We did get 5 assistant principals, 2 school clerks, 4 student service specialists, 15 EL teachers, 11 PBR intervention behavior teachers, 9 miscellaneous teachers, 10 building-based subs, 36 additional paras. We spent $3.2 million in the increased cost of tutors. We did an additional Lowell High School climate support position, 13 parent liaisons, 2 security guards, 3 math resource teachers, 22 additional social workers, 1 additional BCBA. I read that to just give you an example of the 134 positions that the schools purchased with their additional funding. Section 6 is just showing you the Fair Student Funding budgets by school. Section 7 is a fund management section that shows 2 spreadsheets. The first one is just showing you the strategic supplements, all of the costs that we invested in by general fund or ESSER. The second spreadsheet is showing you all 3 years of ESSER funding. And Section 8 is just a grant listing that you're familiar with seeing each year, and it will sort the grants by curriculum, special ed, early childhood, and other support services. That includes summer, after-school programs, homeless, etc. Section 9 is a staff salary section. One change you will see in your final document is there will be a section on grants staff salaries. Someone had indicated that it was not acceptable to put names on grant salaries when grants are not guaranteed continuous. So we didn't put them in this time just to abide by that, but we have since got clarification from DESE that we can continue with that process. So those are the sections in the budget book. We can begin on Monday. I'll bring summaries of the staff change, all the changes in the book, so you have a cheat sheet next to you. And then as we go page by page, I'll highlight what the changes were for the public, and then you can ask your questions.
So to recap, your public budget hearings are scheduled for Mondays. So I'm going to encourage the committee, make sure your calendars are adjusted, your personal calendars. Will get you out the invites. These aren't as simple for us to cancel, but we can cancel one of them, and you still meet the requirements of the law. They're not as simple because you've got to post them for 7 days, and they've got to be posted within the newspaper. So the posting of them is different. So I'm just trying to emphasize a little bit of what Ms. Doherty mentioned as to how she wants to go into next year's meetings. You're obligated to do a little bit of that with these meetings. So I just ask the committee members, make sure that's flagged within your calendars. If there is a question of one of them, we can certainly adjust there if it be the will of the body, but you are obligated to do at least one of them. Overall, we are really excited to provide for you this budget. I am really pleased to be able to say and share genuinely that this is the collective recommendation of our school community. We've been, everybody that you're seeing before you has been out hosting and conducting forums. Our principals have been diligent in their school site council process. Again, over 100 meetings, and we are finding that the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. There has, to what we are bringing forward to you as a recommendation. But it's also important to recognize that we can't do everything. So there has been feedback that we've received that unfortunately we can't meet, but we have been able to meet any trend in feedback that we have been able to assess through the data. And we can share that with you through any questions that are asked. We can share with you how these decisions were made. There is no question that is off limit within the budget process. The budget itself is the purview of the school committee. I'm obligated to provide you a recommendation, but the committee is obligated by law to adopt a budget that it believes in, that it embraces, that will bring forward change, positive change for our students. We believe this budget to be a plan, a financial plan that genuinely supports and invests in our educational plan, and we're confident that our educational plan will bring about improved outcomes for our students, will ensure that we are meeting our fundamental commitment to equity, and overall meets the needs and demands of our families. With that, Mr. Mayor, I submit the FY23 recommended budget, and I'm looking forward to our discussions over the next couple of weeks. You have the KPIs and the enrollment report. Again, just by way of efficiency, because I've learned from our fine mayor here, the KPIs are your data for the third quarter that has informed these budget recommendations. Your enrollment report is our current enrollment as you see it. I would suggest that we accept those as reports of progress. Our big conversation right now is how we're going to meet the needs of the kids who are within that enrollment report and how we're utilizing that data to chart a path forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent and Ms. Turner for the report on the budget. Any comments from the members? Ms. Martin?
Super quick. I do think we need to move forward with booking both hearing dates. I mean, if that's an actual question to us, that would be my recommendation. If we get through it in one, great. But the reality is we historically don't tend to do that.
Sure.
Let's accept our failings. And then secondly, I would just like to know where in that schedule we get to hear from the site councils.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. It was originally scheduled for yesterday. Mr. Skinner, have you identified a date, or are you still waiting on a date to get the rescheduled meeting?
We're trying to have it happen on May 12th, which is a week from tomorrow. Committee member Lay, who is the chairperson of that subcommittee, and I have spoken this evening, and we're polling the others. The 12th is our hope.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Again, thank you for the report. We'll now go to the next item on the agenda, 10.2 Key Performance Indicators. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. That's one of the reports that I'm suggesting that the committee accept as a report of progress, unless there are any questions that the committee may have.
Okay. Wonderful. That's all set. We will go to the next line item. The motion response, 10.3. Motion 7, CAO of 4/16/21 by Mr. Lay regarding the feasibility of after-dark programs at Lowell High School. Any comment, Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Ms. Desmond for a wonderful report, and also Ms. Rothschild from the high school. I read through this report, and I have a mixed feeling in a way. I feel very excited in one way. Let's start with the exciting part. The exciting part is that I'm so thrilled to see the program available for the students. Thinking back, I wish when I went to school I have this kind of program so I can go attend after school. And you know, automotive, IT, and I think we're going to have HVAC also next year. I'm so excited for the students. I don't know, there should be lines. Students should be lining up to attend the program. Just looking at the IT alone, I see that these kids, when they graduate, well, I don't know if I'm trying to highlight the wonderful part of the vocational school or not by saying all these good things about them. The program that they have, when they graduate, HTML, .NET programming, SQL programming, JavaScript, Java programming. I mean, all these are very good programs, very good things to put on your college applications. I mean, all these things are so wonderful, but then there's a question part is why we don't have so many students lining up to attend the program. And also, I don't know if we make it too difficult for the students to attend. Just thinking that, you know, Algebra 2, if you want to be an auto mechanic in the future, are you interested in solving 3-variable equation in Algebra 2 or graphing a parabola? And so I don't know if that is something that makes some students not able to attend. Anyway, so that's my question, Mr. Desmond. So thank you very much for a very good report. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Lay, do you have a question? You want to respond to that, or?
Actually, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That would be nice if Ms. Desmond could respond to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Through Mr. Superintendent to.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you.
Sure. So there are a lot of considerations for students to be able to participate in these programs. One is that if you participate in this program, you're committing to attending school from 2:30 to 5:30 every afternoon, Monday through Friday. And so students who participate in show choir or band or ROTC or sports programs will not necessarily do this because they want to do those other things. And so we do have open houses that describe these programs to both the students and the families. We do try to recruit students to attend these programs. I will say that during COVID, when we were remote, it was much harder to have the open houses and be able to explain to students about these programs. And so I do think that we will see more students interested in enrolling in these programs now that we're back in person and we can have those events again. We have one planned for the next couple of weeks. What I will also say is that the requirements as far as Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, that is what the vocational school requires of their students to be able to be in these programs. So we are just providing the expectation that the Greater Lowell Vocational School has of their own students so that everybody is in the program with the same background and has the same knowledge so that they're able to successfully complete the programs. And they do use a lot of mathematics actually in these programs. You are right, we are also adding HVAC for next year, and we hope to continue to grow these programs. Unfortunately, there are maximum enrollments in these programs because they are hands-on, and so some of these programs, we have a cap on them. We cannot accept more than 20 students in the program just because of the nature of the hands-on activity that's going on, say, in auto tech. There has to be a lot of guidance from the instructor and a lot of one-on-one support of the students. So hopefully I answered your questions in that quick recap or that brief explanation.
Very well, thank you very much. Sounds very exciting. Thank you.
You all set, Mr. Lay? We'll now go to 10.4, response to motion 9 CAO of 41621 by Mr. Lay regarding the feasibility of STEM programming at Lowell High School. Any comment, Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, thanks to Ms. Desmond and Ms. Rothschild for a very good report. I learned something new, that our high school has many pathways, and there are varieties of pathways that already have STEM associated with it. So I guess it is the closest to best thing that if we have the STEM program specifically for the high school, I think that may be a little bit more challenging, maybe a little bit more resource needed. So I'm happy to see that we already have a STEM program already embedded to a few of our pathways already. So thank you very much for the report.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Ron. I had a question regarding this report. What I didn't see here was any discussion about the makerspace and the 3D printing opportunities. I remember going to an event when that space first opened at the high school, and I'm wondering, through you to the superintendent, if we could get a status on the makerspace that was created. I believe it was located at the Freshman Academy.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yeah, I actually believe that might have been a motion of about a year ago. So, Ms. Desmond, can we try to resurface? There was a report I believe Ms. Desmond put together. Was it a year or two ago? Something I remember you and I'm just looking for a head nod. You recall there was a report, so we'll resurface that for you at the very least, and we can do that really quickly. We can also update it, but
It looks like maybe Ms. Desmond could answer right now, as just an update. I mean, it's part of the whole report with feasibility of STEM at the high school would be to include the makerspace, I would think. Right? Ms.
Through Mr. Superintendent to Ms. Desmond, if you recall the motion response or you have an answer, you're welcome to make it now, or maybe you can provide the report later. If you can find the motion response, maybe you can, since it's on file already, maybe when you find it, you could just email to the entire committee members. Would that be possible?
In my experience, I ask questions. If we don't get the answer, I don't often get the answer. I have to ask a couple of times.
Sure.
So if someone could just provide with, I'm not looking for detail, but what is the status of the maker's space right now? Is it functioning? Is it being used? Is it part of the STEM programming at the high school currently?
Yeah. Is that, Mr. Superintendent, is that something that somebody would have a quick answer to? Or maybe Ms. Doherty is not looking for a detailed answer, just maybe and then if Mr. Superintendent can provide like a detailed answer later, but maybe a quick update if that's possible.
I'm confident there's a response to this that I can get to you. It's let me locate the response and see how long ago it was, but I'll send to you what the response was. I remember researching this before.
Sure. And just to go back on that, Mr. Superintendent, if you could just maybe email to the entire body, so everybody have that. Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a second question. To Ms. Desmond, what if when a student graduates with one of those pathways, it doesn't matter, STEM program or finance, so on their college, grade report or when they graduate, do they get it like a specific certificate or anything to acknowledge the college that the student want to apply to, that they have completed this particular program?
Through Mr. Superintendent to Ms. Desmond again.
So there's a designation on the transcript that the guidance department make sure is on there so that there is awareness when they apply to colleges that they have completed that pathway.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, just one more comment on that. I was just brought to my attention. It's a good suggestion by Madam Secretary. Maybe in addition to emailing that to the members now, maybe you can provide that as part of an additional package for the following meeting, Mr. Superintendent, so the public can have access to it as well.
Sure. Yes, I can do that. I'm referring to one that was provided publicly previously, so I'm going to resurface it out of an agenda and just repopulate it, is what I'm suggesting, not a new report.
Sure,
Okay.
sure, absolutely. Okay, hearing no other comments, we will go to 10.5, response to motion 10, CAO 4222 by Mr. Rossi regarding IT staffing delegations. Any comment, Mr. Rossi?
Thank you, Ms. Desmond, for the report. It was just brought to my attention that there was an evaluation done a few years back that in regards to having at least 12 part-time technicians for the computers, and that was with a 3-to-1 ratio when the kids had Chromebooks. Now it's a 1-to-1 ratio with kids having the Chromebooks because everyone has them because of COVID. I just wanted to bring it to the attention because I have heard that there are some tech issues in schools and there's not a lot of or there's limited responses, and I'm not going to make any sense because I'm tired right now. So if you could get me any information on that, I'd just be greatly appreciative. Thank you.
No other comments. We'll go to 10.6, response to motion 15, COO 41621 by Ms. Doherty regarding furniture needs. Any comment, Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. The report doesn't mention lockers, and I've seen some lockers in pretty tough shape, but I did reach out to Mr. Underwood. He said he would get that information. I guess my question with this is, in some situations, like in the report, he mentions the Bartlett School and the problems with the cafeteria tables. They actually have sharp metal pieces sticking out. Do we have funding in this year's budget to purchase the equipment needs? I think it really speaks to safety and equity issues when you go into some of our older schools and the cafeteria tables have broken pieces of metal sticking out, or the lockers are in really tough shape. So that would be a question through you, Your Honor, to the superintendent. Is there going to be funding available to make these? Because the furniture needs are our responsibility, I would think.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have a total here, so I'm hoping that we would get that in time for the budget. Well, actually, if it's money we have available, we still would need a total of what the needs are across the district and what it would cost. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments? We'll now go to 10.7, response to motion 16, COO of 31621 by Ms. Mon regarding principal evaluation completions and contract cycle. Any comment, Ms. Mon?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. We could use many more of those. 10.8, enrollment report. Need a motion to accept reports of the superintendent, 10.1 through 10.8, as reports of progress by Ms. Chun, second by Mr. Rossi. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. All the reports are accepted and approved. 10.9, home education. Need a motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Lay. Any discussion? None. Roll call, please.
Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
11 is new business. We have already taken up 11.1 and 11.2. We now go to 11.3, the budget transfer. Need a motion to approve the budget transfer for $3,854,266.82 by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Chun. Any comments? None. Roll call, please.
Mayor Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty? Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Ms. Doherty?
Sorry, I just have a quick question. I'm not going to not do my job because we're combining two meetings into one.
Sure.
I was wondering why we had a salary line shortage of 3.7 million, if I could just get an explanation through you to the superintendent.
Mr. Superintendent?
Hi, great question. It's one, a quick answer is just that when we budget to make things fair between schools, we now budget with average salaries. So one school could budget a teacher at 80, we budget all teachers at 86,000. Some schools that are charging 50,000 for a teacher, we'd end up having to move money from that account into others. So we take money from the accounts that have extra and put it into the accounts that are negative, but it's due to average staff salaries and teacher turnover. If one school has a teacher retiring this year, and we built the budget with that salary, and then we replace it with a brand-new teacher, that account now has extra money.
Thank you.
Yep.
No other comment. We'll go to 11.4, which is the permission to post a position. Need a motion to post the coordinator of culturally and linguistically sustaining practices by Mr. Rossi, second by Ms. Doherty. Any comment, Ms. Doherty?
Yes, I am in favor of posting this position, but I have a question in the way of a request. Why is it a non-affiliated position? Because we have coordinator roles that are part of our LSAA union, and I'm just, through you to the superintendent, why are we posting this as a non-affiliated? Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent?
It's incumbent upon the unions to identify the jobs that are affiliated. If there are new positions that are being created, we're always, whichever union identifies this job as being affiliated with them, we then review the prevailing laws to see if they're eligible and then engage in negotiations. This is a brand new job for the district, at which point it starts as unaffiliated. We have 3 representative bodies that represent members of our employee groups. We would imagine that one of them would reach out to us and identify that this should be within their bargaining unit, at which point we'll review the prevailing laws. Protocol.
So if I could just follow up, so they have not reached out to you?
Dr. Hall?
From my recollection, they weren't interested in this position. I could certainly, way back when we first talked about it, but I could talk to them again.
I suspect you'll get a different answer. I suspect you'll get a different answer.
It's a good opportunity. This is our standard protocol, though, so if for brand new jobs, because we do have 3 units.
Any other comment? Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mayor Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
$11.5 is the vote of inter-district school choice. We had a public hearing earlier in the meeting. Now need a motion that the Lowell Public Schools maintain its current stance to opt out of participation in the inter-district school choice program for grades 9 through 12 for the 2022 through 2023 school year by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Del Rossi. Any comments?
I'd just simply like the administration's recommendation that we continue with our current policy.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes.
It's easy enough. No other comments? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Yes. Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Okay, 11.6, this is not my motion, but it's on the agenda for us to take a vote on. Need a motion to authorize the mayor to collaborate with the superintendent to formally adjust the timeline of the superintendent's annual evaluation as recommended by Massey, let's have a discussion first. Maybe Mr. Superintendent could explain
Sure.
the idea behind this first, and then we can go to the committee comments.
Sure.
Mr.
So,
Superintendent?
yes, so there's a provision of my contract that has the committee submitting to me its evaluation by June 1. It would obligate me to submit to you by next week all of the material so that you can then conduct an evaluation. During the course of our discussion as within the subcommittee, MASC, Executive Director Glenn Kuchar mentioned on multiple occasions that he would suggest by mutual agreement, given the amount of turnover on the body, that we come to agreement on a different timeline. I did talk to a few different members. There doesn't appear to be agreement on what that timeline would look like from the committee. However, I am on the other side of this negotiation, and I did not feel it to be appropriate for me to be polling the committee. Instead, as I was discussing with the mayor informally, there maybe is a need for more space for him to be able to engage with you, talk with each of you as members as to what's amenable to you. So this allows us to do that formally as opposed to just informally, given the fact that it's a provision of the contract. So this allows you complete flexibility. I'm amenable to whatever works for the committee. I am understanding, particularly Committee Member Chun just joined the committee. That's very different than committee members that have joined in January, which is very different than the 3 members that have been on the committee for some time. I'm understanding of that. Whatever works for the committee, I'm ultimately going to agree to, but it's got to be done formally. This is the best that I could come up with so that we can initiate that process. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Dory or Ms. Mon, who wants to go first? Ms. Mon?
No, you can, if you want to go first, I'm fine. Okay. I just wanted to comment that, I mean, I do think that this is our opportunity to have that conversation. I would say that from my perspective, and I think I articulated this with Mr. Kuchar as well when we were having the conversation, going with a calendar year, I mean, some districts do it, some don't. I think we get to make that decision ourselves. I have always felt that an evaluation schedule that follows the school year is appropriate for a school position. I mean, this is the way our year functions, and to me, it has always made the most sense so that you can go through your process. I am very comfortable with the superintendent having to provide us with his materials at any point during the month of June. I mean, it could be June 30th, quite honestly. The key for historically, and again, I know I cite that way too often, but historically, it gave us the summer to go through the evaluation process. It is a time where theoretically there are fewer meetings, where we have time where we can schedule an additional subcommittee or a special meeting to be able to give this the kind of attention that it deserves, and that allows every member to be able to participate, I think, effectively. I understand we're in a different situation with the new member. I want to be respectful of that, but in all honesty, that member can participate. There's no reason, that's just kind of the way our system is set up. And I would not want to make an amendment to this schedule that then gets us on a cycle and a calendar that just doesn't make sense for the work that we do. So I would put forward as a motion, I am absolutely open to hearing the feelings of my colleagues, that we set up our evaluation cycle so that we receive the formative kind of portfolio assessment from the superintendent by the end of June, and then plan to enter into the actual evaluation process over the course of July and August, with a final report to be reported out no later than maybe give us some wiggle room, but the second meeting in September. I'd put that forth as a motion, but I'm open to other opinions.
Both. I'd like to second that motion.
That we receive our assessment information from the superintendent by the end of June. The committee conducts its evaluation over the course of the summer with a final report by the second meeting in September. My thought would be, though, we would want to do that for the first meeting in September. It's a great time to do a kind of back to school session.
Both.
Okay, good.
So I would second the motion on the floor. I also want to say that we have always, and again, it's a historic thing, but you get into understanding how these processes work. We always have committee discussion about the process, which I think that Ms. Martin's motion gives us time to do that in terms of how we're going to proceed with the actual evaluation. It's always been from the chair of the Human Resources Subcommittee. That has been the aggregator, and that has been, in this case, it's Ms. Martin. Last year, it was Ms. Clark. She was the chair of HR. And so I think we should stay with that format. That's been successful. It doesn't add over some burden for the mayor, who's got a lot of other duties. In addition, in respect for our newest member, Mr. Lay joined, I believe it was in May of last year, when he took the seat vacated by Mr. Hoey, and attended maybe one meeting, and we moved forward with the evaluation of the superintendent. At that time, it was a very tightened timeline. We had a weekend to look at the portfolio of information that the superintendent provided. So I think that this seems like a much better approach to spread it out through the summer, have it ready by September. But again, I wouldn't see any need to go further into the school year than that. And so that's my comments. And I think ultimately it does depend on Dr. Boyd, because his contract specifies that we have to have it completed by June 1st, which is why we were under such a tight deadline last year, because we didn't get started on it until well into May. We didn't get the assessment until, like I said, it was a Friday night, and we had to have it, we started the evaluations the following week. So I think this outline timeline, if Dr. Boyd is accept extending the evaluation into September, I think provides the newest member some opportunity to get more comfortable with the work, and as well as give us time to develop the process. Thank you.
If I could, Mayor, just to help.
Superintendent?
Yeah, thank you. I'm willing to accept what the request is. However, though, I cannot commit to agreeing to it tonight. I would need to assess what this means. This is a suggestion here and a recommendation that we actually extend the evaluation window by 2.5 times of what it is right now. For me to submit to you in June and then be evaluated in September is vastly different than me submitting to you in May and being evaluated on June 1. I'm not saying I'm disagreeable with it. I just would need time to assess what this means in terms of our workflow in the district. It is quite distracting, if you could imagine, for a 2.5-month evaluation of the chief executive. I'm not aware of any other organization that engages in that process, but I do appreciate the recommendation, and I will take it under advisement. So thank you.
Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Go back to my colleague's comment about me joining in May, and only one meeting I had the opportunity to evaluate the superintendent. It's a little bit different. I had served before, and I had been always involved with the school. So it was not like me stepping in the first time and all of a sudden I evaluate the superintendent. So with that said, I thought the motion that we have here is to have the mayor and the superintendent to work out the detail. June 1st, June 31st, what the difference? I mean, if you move from the first day of the month to the last day of the month, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. So I want to have the mayor and the superintendent to have the opportunity to work out the day that makes sense according to the motion 11.6. So I would not support Ms. Martin's motion, but I rather stick with the motion that's on the paper, which is to ask the superintendent and the mayor to collaborate which day makes sense.
Any other comments?
Well, yeah, anyway.
So
So
we do have two motions now. So, Mr. Lay, are you making?
okay, I will rather make a motion that according to 11.6, which is to have the mayor and the superintendent to work out the good day for to have an opportunity to work out the date.
Okay. Do we have a second?
You're the second. I mean, you're the first.
Okay. Well, this is not my motion. This is a.
The superintendent.
Yes, it's an agenda item, not a motion, yes.
Yes, Ms. Doherty.
I was just wondering, what would you prefer, Dr. Boyd? If you don't want to have it spread through the summer, what would you prefer?
I would prefer that we stick with the window as is, which is a 1-month evaluation window, and we identify a month that all committee members feel comfortable, because it is important for me that I get feedback from all committee members. So the challenge that I've had in talking with individual members is everybody's on a different page with their comfort level. It's important to me that I get feedback from all members so that I know the direction that we're headed. It's also important to me that we minimize the distraction and disruption to the rest of the organization, hence the reason to keep it as a condensed 1-month window from the time I submit to the time we close it out and receive it. If those two things are met, that it's a 1-month window and all committee members are comfortable with giving meaningful feedback, then whatever that 1 month is from start to end, I'm comfortable with. I don't know that I can agree to a 2.5-month evaluation window, knowing the disruption and distraction for the organization, particularly around opening the school year.
Any other comments before I make my comment? So the requested item on the agenda is not a motion by me. It is a suggestion for discussion here in the chamber. And as mayor and the chairperson here, I'm here to serve. So whatever the will of the body is, as Mr. Superintendent said, I am, on my part, I will make myself available either to work to collaborate on the evaluation with the superintendent, or as the motion by Ms. Mon suggested, to have the discussion by the entire body. I will not vote because on the motion now by Mr. Lay, I would not vote for myself to carry more work or do things that the body does not wish. But if the body wish me to collaborate with the superintendent on the evaluation, I'd be happy to do that. So if there is a second on this motion, then we can hear the difference opinion on the floor. We will do a roll call. If there's no second, then the motion will fail, and then we'll take up the motion on the floor.
So I guess maybe my colleague did not understand why did not second my motion. My motion was just to agree with the recommendation on the paper here, is to authorize the mayor and collaborate with the superintendent to adjust the timeline.
Yes.
So I just wanted my colleague to hear that and maybe give me the opportunity to, second it so that we have the opportunity to vote on it.
Sure. So again, if the body wishes, you can second and vote on this. I'd be happy to do it. And if not, I'm here to listen to and work with the council members here. So let me just finish on Mr. Lay's motion. Do you have a comment on Mr. Lay's motion, or?
I'll second it.
You second?
But my motion is moot. My motion can't pass.
How do you know that?
Because we have a contractual requirement to conduct this in a specific way. If the superintendent isn't amenable to making that change, I mean, it's entirely dependent on that. So my motion can't pass. The conversation will have to happen to come up with any kind of change. So I will, A, rescind my motion, and second Mr. Lay's motion, and Mr. Mayor, we'll have to wait and see what you can work out that we think may be amenable to the full committee.
Or we can go forward with the contract as it currently states and have the evaluation before June 1st. I mean, the superintendent is fully aware what's in his contract. He should have his materials ready to give to us today, because when the Personnel Subcommittee met, they said we would expect to get his materials in the 1st of May. We could have had it tonight. I mean, if he was following the contract, his contract specifies we do the evaluation by June 1st.
It specifies that I get you my materials in May.
Okay,
If you wait till the last weekend in May, that doesn't give us much time to review it. That's what happened last time.
so for clarity, so everybody has a path to understanding what we're trying to do here and working with the evaluation timeline, Ms. Mon. The motion by Mr. Lay is for me to work collaboratively with the superintendent on the evaluation. And with that, just for the my understanding of there's no conflict of interest, so to speak. It may or may not be. I don't have the solicitor to answer that. But more importantly, I am here just to serve the body here. It will be your wish, whatever your vote will be. I will comply with that, whether to work myself with the superintendent or not. I will do that. So we'll take if you have a second by Ms. Mon, we'll do a roll call. If the motion fails, then maybe you can take up your motion if you wish to reintroduce that. Would that make sense, Ms. Doherty?
If I could just clarify, what Ms. Martin says is we can't take a vote to change the evaluation timeline without the superintendent agreeing.
I see.
And he just said he's not comfortable agreeing to the timeline of her motion. So it's kind of moot to make the motion. But if he's interested in a 1-month timeline, maybe we just say we get his assessment, his self-assessment, at a different date and make the window a month from that. If we want to have it by the end of September, would you be comfortable, Dr. Boyd, with giving us your information? What would that be, August? We get the information in August, and then we plan to review it in September, or we get the information in June and plan to review it in July? I mean, we can shorten the window.
May I ask why we want to do it, to have the answer now when we just let the superintendent and the mayor have the opportunity to work out the date, rather than why we put it?
If I could assist here, there's not agreement amongst the body. This was the way I worded it in the agenda because there was not agreement amongst even the few members that I had talked to. I do not believe that here at 9:45 there's going to be agreement based on the conversations I've had with members, hence the reason that I worded this. We can exchange out, as the mayor has alluded to, any member of the body that's interested in working with me on this so that we can get to agreement. I don't think the mayor's committed that it has to be him. It just simply was convenience of wording because he's the chair of the body to word it that way. But I need one person that I can work with formally because it hasn't been productive for me to try to poll people, and I just didn't think that was even appropriate at the point when I started to hear the difference of opinions.
Ms. DeRossi made a comment, then we'll go to Ms.
I guess I just wanted to clarify, because from what I took away from the Massachusetts Association of School Committee member, Glenn Kuchar, was that we needed to define as a school committee certain areas for the superintendent to report on. And if we haven't done that yet as a committee, when would we do that? And when was? Oh.
That was one of the things we didn't talk about.
Okay, if Ms. Mon? Okay, Ms. DeRossi, are you done?
Sorry.
Okay,
Done.
Ms. Mon?
So I would just say, I mean, the recommendation was made by the superintendent. So he has indicated that he is willing to discuss changes to the schedule. So that's step one. I understand the concern. I would say if the mayor can conduct these conversations, come to an agreement that it is believed that the majority of the body will support, then that will allow us to move forward. So, I mean, again, second in the motion, I think that's the only course forward. I agree, 9:45 is not the best time to reach consensus. So I think that would be the best opportunity. I would request and recommend that it happen sooner rather than later, so that, again, part of the challenge is that May and June are crazy months for the school committee. It's why it's such a challenge. So just if we can get this in a format that is satisfactory to everybody,
That would be a very happy ending.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mia Chow,
Present.
Ms. Chun? What did she say, present? Present, okay. Ms. Del Rossi?
I mean, if I say yes, that means what?
Means that the
That
mayor will,
means myself and Mr. Superintendent will collaborate, work on the evaluation, and of course I will bring back the information to the body for discussion and for a vote. My working with the superintendent is not final by no means.
Yes. Well,
It will be after the discussion with Mr. Superintendent, it will be a recommendation to the school committee board to take a vote in public.
This is a low-stakes decision. All we're doing here is making an adjustment to the contract that'll ultimately come back to you. You're authorizing the mayor to negotiate on your behalf with me, but he has to bring back to you a recommendation that you approve. So it just formalizes some of the informal conversations we've all had. It does appear to me, based on the informal conversations, that there's a lack of comfort amongst several members with trying to compile an evaluation by June 1. Unfortunately, we can't do that by virtue of a handshake and a phone call, so we have to do that formally. All we're doing here is establishing a formal process to do that. So this is a low-stakes decision. If the mayor is, I appreciate the way he's presenting it. It doesn't have to be him. He just happens to be the mayor, so it gives me one person to work with. That's my recommendation. You could certainly assign Miss Martin. It doesn't. To me, I work with all of you equally. He just happens to have the title of mayor.
But we got to vote on.
Present.
May I ask,
Present.
Mr. Mayor? may
We're
I-
doing roll call. We're doing roll call.
Ms. Doherty?
No.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
3 yeas, 1 nay, 3 present, motion fails.
I would like to make a substitute motion, or a new motion, that the superintendent negotiate to set up a new schedule for the evaluation with the chair of the Personnel Subcommittee. That I think I'm more comfortable with because she knows the process. She's been through it. So
Motion
that would
by-
be my motion if I could get a second on that.
Okay, motion
And then,
by-
with the understanding that we're going to try to do it sooner rather than later. We're not going to put it off till, the end of the year.
Okay.
So my understanding is we're just changing the person from the mayor to Ms. Martin, correct?
Ms. Thompson, could you please repeat your question?
I said, so my understanding is we're just changing the person from the mayor to Ms. Martin, if I'm correct.
Yes, if I get a second on that, yes.
Motion by Ms. Doherty, second by anyone?
Second, fine, second.
Second by Ms. Moran. I just want to make another comment. Again, I will not be taking a vote on this one also, just because I did not vote for the initial recommendation. So I will withdraw myself from voting for this one as well. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
May I-
Mia Chow?
Present.
Ms. Chun? Yes. Ms. Del Rossi? Yes. Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
5 yeas, 1 present, approved.
Let me look at the clock here. 9:58. Let's see if we can move through the remainder on this agenda in 1 minute. 12, convention conference request. Need a motion to bundle and approve convention conference request 12.1 and 12.2 by Ms. Chun, second by Mr. Rossi. Roll call, please.
Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
13, communication. Need a motion to bundle and accept and place on file communication 13.1 through 13.2 by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Mon. Roll call, please.
Mia Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Chun? Ms. Del Rossi? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Thompson?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
14, adjournment. Motion by Mr. Rossi, second by Ms. Dory to adjourn. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion's carried.